All right.
Yo, 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 yo.
Well, hello, folks. We are here, and we are
Just to
live.
clarify, even though it had the Dantes Alexander's name on the first page, that's not me. I'm just random dude number five. He's gonna join us, we think, but
Right,
you know,
right.
just to clarify.
Happy Easter, everyone. Welcome to episode 23 of Fright Lounge, the show in which the best horrorologists in town will discuss horror in depth and get a conversation going for seasoned horror viewers, as well as introducing newbies to the horror genre. I, of
Hmm.
course, am your host, Rigor, from the podcasts Then Is Now, The East Meets the West, and the Cult Movie Lounge. And joining us, as always, is Michael. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
Hey, it's going. I'm not a public creator of anything particular. I just happen to be friends with Rigor for like God, it's like 40 years
150
now or
years.
something. Yeah, this is insane. And yeah, we always had similar style interests. Actually, Roger got me into horror. I've been on the show a bunch of times. If you've seen the show before, I don't know why I'm introducing myself with any
Well,
length.
I always like to do it for people who haven't seen the show before,
Just in
always get new
case.
people. And you know what, Michael, you're a great film analyzer. I love your take on movies. We may not always agree. We're kind of like the Siskel and Ebert of movie watching, but
It's true.
it's always fun.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as Michael mentioned, Dantes Alexander, the Prince Regent of electronic music, is usually joins us, but he's not going to be here till a little while later. He's going to be probably an hour late. And Bill Van Ryn, our regular co-host, could not be here today, so it's just us two. And did you have a good Easter, Michael? I mean, today is Easter, but
I didn't really do anything for Easter. I live so far away from my family, and so most of the, standard holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter that we usually do kind of like a family thing. I don't really do any of that family stuff, and as a result, I end up really not doing much of anything. Although
yeah.
I did buy a Reese's peanut butter bunny. That was about yay big, relatively large. Chopped it up into pieces, severed the head and the leg, the hind legs, and all that stuff, and just ate it and enjoyed that. That was my Easter. That was the extent of my Easter activities.
I like to bite the eyes off of the chocolate bunnies and go, "Stop looking at me."
I remember when we were kids, you used to do something random, like you put like a shoelace up your nose, and then you just look at me and go, "What? What?
Yeah.
What?"
I
Oh
still
man.
do that, but oh my
Oh
god.
Lord.
So let's do our first segment here, Fright Finds, which is stuff that we
Oh
found
yeah.
in the past or present that kind of is horror related that we want to share with you guys. And by the way, if you're out there, oh, here we go. Frank has already joined us. Thanks, Frank. Happy Easter. If
Hey
you want to
Frank.
join in the chat, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/fright lounge. We're also on YouTube, and I think a couple other places on Facebook that I randomly threw it in and kind of forgot that it was on there, like my own page and the Then Is Now group. But go ahead, Michael. What do you got for us today?
Well, yeah, I do have a thing I wanted to share in the thing, the Fright Finds. So this is a find that if I open it in a new window, does it help or anything? No, I guess it doesn't
It's
really do
full
much.
screen. I can see it. So
It is, oh, it's okay. So let me get rid of this dumb little thing. I gotta move the thing up and move that over, and then I can get rid of that. Okay. So is it still full screen or it was full screen before?
it was full screen before as well.
Oh, so it's fine now. It's big enough. You can see it.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okie dokie. So anyway, it's a book that is an illustrated version of Frankenstein. I'm going to skip down to, so here's the cover. This is, I don't remember when I bought this. I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s. I found it at some comic book store because Bernie Wrightson, the very famous um, comic book artist. I know he worked for Marvel. I'm not sure if he worked for other. He must have worked for everybody a little bit, but he has this great pen and ink style that he does with cross hatching and just line work, like indicating different textures, like the wet hair over here and the glass and the fabric on the coat and the liquid in the bottles and all this stuff, and he's just incredible. So I'm not having a easy time moving this up. This picture here. You can see the creature, which he rendered, which he portrayed as this really big, scary ass thing, is basically getting really pissed at Victor Frankenstein right there. If you've never read the story, Victor is the scientist first name. I actually was in the play Frankenstein when I was a kid,
Yes.
when I was in high school, and so anyway, this is I'm going to go up instead of down. This is just a real close up. I took this photo from one of the pages of the grass in one of the this is a the like in the bot this isn't even the whole picture. This is just like a third of the photo third of the drawing. At the bottom is grass, and I just think it's so amazing. Like how long must that have taken him to go through with like his pen, and and none of the grass blades cross over each, well, almost none of them cross over each other. It's like he was so meticulous with his little lines and things. And then there's some darker images here. I happen to really like the way, even though this is all this person's hand, you can see where the knuckle bends because there's a little more shading there, and you can see like almost see where the veins are in his hand because he put in a few lines to kind of make it that. And you can distinguish the buttons from the sleeve of the coat. And you can tell that this thing that he's leaning on is made out of wood. I really just think Bernie Wrightson is a freaking genius when it comes to this type of thing. And so there's ropes, there's the sail and his fist. Here's another outdoor snowy scene with somebody hanging. I don't actually remember in the story what this is but apparently somebody's being executed or something, or hanging themselves. No, they're tied up. It must not have been suicide. So
Right.
I don't remember the story clearly enough to know who that was, but I'll have to go back and revisit the story. And again, you have some glass bottles, and then here you've got Victor looking close up at the creature before it's really awake, and just every little bit, the stringy hair partially covering the ear, the darkness where the cheekbone creates a little cavern there, the teeth, um, just the bridge of the nose, everything, the chain over here, the little ropes that are holding up the flasks and everything, all the strands of Victor's hair. You can clearly see his facial expression, how shocked he is. And I just think that this guy, Bernie Wrightson, this illustrator, I don't think he's alive anymore.
No, he
Uh,
died in 2017.
but he's just phenomenal. As far as I'm concerned, he's one of the best illustrators slash inkers. Um, I think he did both. I think he did both
Yeah.
penciling and inking for comics. This is just he's just off the charts. When I found this, like I had seen his work in comics, but when I found this book and I just started looking through, there's no color. It's all shade gradations of lines and things where he gets his textures and everything from shapes. This is just like a part of the cover where it highlights his name. And then up here, it just shows when it was published. So I guess it was originally published in 77,
Yeah.
or at least the drawings were copyrighted for 77. So maybe the book came out in 83, and that would make sense. I must have found this when I was in junior high or
Right. And
freshman in high
the
school or
Stephen King
something.
intro is copyright 83. So,
Oh, yeah, right. There you go. Yeah. Stephen King wrote the intro. And then Bernie Wrightson did illustrations for a small Stephen King novella that I have that I'm going to show on another. I was going to show them both today, but it's just too much.
yeah.
Um, by the way, the book, this is only a sampling of the illustrations in the book. There's tons of them. I have the book right here. Na-na. Oh, you can't see
We
it.
can't see it.
Can't see it. Oh, hold it next
It's
to me.
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
It's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's a very large edition. Son of a gun, you can't see it at all.
There you go. You
But
can see it
it's
there.
very big. It's like a magazine size. It's big, and there's tons and tons of illustrations in it, like all the way through.
That's
Anyway,
cool.
so it's a novel. It's the
Um,
whole novel. It is the novel, the whole thing, but it's not an adaptation or anything. But it just has tons of illustrations in it.
and one thing I love, I mean, I've always found his artwork very inspirational, especially for my own. I mean, I love to work in pen and ink when I can. It's been a long time,
Mhm.
but I love that he doesn't outline anything. It's all whether or not there's black ink.
Mhm.
There's nothing is outlined
Oh,
or traditional comic book inking. You know what I mean?
there's a okay. Now that you said that, okay, I'm gonna prepare another photo to show it, but it's gonna take me a couple of minutes. But there's one in here that's exactly what you're saying.
It's funny when you turn over like that, the way the camera it makes it look like you got a huge dent on the top of your head.
It doesn't it? It's so weird. I can't find it. All right, well, give me some time. But
Okay,
there's
so
one in here that's yeah, it's
I want to
exactly
say
what you're
hi to
saying.
one of our fans who said hi, Christopher. Hi, welcome, Christopher. And Frank wrote, "That is awesome. Looks like lino cut, woodcut, old style book printing." I think that was the effect he was going
It
for.
really does. Yeah, it's true. And that's what I love about it, especially for such an old story. It just gives the whole thing more like texture and
Yeah.
you know.
So, did you find what you wanted to show us? Oh, your mic.
Ah,
You're
I'm
right there.
gonna I'm gonna when I find it, I'm gonna take a picture and display it like I did the other ones, but I
Okay.
don't want to make you wait for it right now.
No worries. No worries.
But I'll pop it
So,
up when it's ready.
my pick for Fright Lounge actually came unexpectedly. The wife and I stopped at the store and I sat in the car with my grandson and she came out with something that I didn't even ask her to get and I was so excited. I don't know if guys can see it. It's a thick what do you call it? Thick book magazine, Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Oh wow.
And it's got I'm kind of trying to do this backwards here, but it's got all kinds of awesome pictures from the Godzilla movies and detailed behind the scenes stuff, and that was an ad, but I saw something there.
So the whole issue is devoted to Godzilla.
Yeah, yeah, it's
That's
got like
awesome.
the Showa era series, and there was one picture I wanted to show that had well, this is a cool one. This is from Godzilla Final Wars, which is a great picture.
Oh, that
Some
is a
people
great
love the
picture.
movie, some people hate it. I'm Spencer and I love it. But there was one really particularly cool one. I think there might be a couple of Bob Eggleton drawings in here too, which this might be one of Bob's artwork, which by the way, he's famous for doing all these awesome Godzilla paintings. And
Holy crap, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And he actually wrote or he contributed to the History of Creature Double Feature segment of my website, which I'm going to mention the website in a second here, but if I can find it real quick. Excuse me. I can't find it right now. There was a King Ghidorah picture, but anyways, if you get a chance, it's out on the newsstands now. When we're not a shill for Life magazine or anything, but I just thought it was really cool.
Free plug.
Kind of shows them through the history, especially considering the new Godzilla movie's out. I have not seen it yet.
Me
Spency
neither.
said,
I really want to.
yeah, I saw the new Ghostbusters the other day. That was really good.
Was it? Oh, good.
Yeah, it got a lot of criticism, but it's like really, your nitpicks are not, um,
Yeah.
they're just nitpicks.
It just depends, I think, of whether you go into it with an attitude of, oh, I want to have fun with this, or I'm going to analyze it and compare it to the original, which obviously was phenomenal. I mean, you can't compete with the original.
Right, right.
It's not possible. There it is.
So Frank wrote on Facebook, the Frankenstein series on Netflix is very good, gives you a glimpse of Shelley et al. When they were writing. So I did not even realize there was a Frankenstein series on Netflix. I may have to check that out if I don't, I don't
I
have
think
time
I
to do everything.
added it. I think I added it to my list at one point, but then I got lost in the shuffle. By the
So,
way, I wanted to say
oh.
that while you were talking about Godzilla, I muted my microphone to blow my nose, and the sound of me blowing my nose sounded suspiciously like the Godzilla roar.
Maybe
And I
that's what it
thought,
is
oh,
he's just got, his sinuses are always full.
yeah, it's hay fever. It's a killer.
Oh my gosh. At some point, we'll try to cover a couple of Godzilla movies on here. But I did mention the website earlier. And if you get a chance, folks, check out havenpodcasts.com. That's Haven Podcast, plural, havenpodcasts.com, because I recently just spent a couple months revamping the whole website. Now it's got not just all of our shows and all of my blogs and everything else. We got news. We've got about 8 categories of news that you can check out that we curate from other websites, and it's really actually doing well driving traffic to the website. And also we have ads now, and I know a lot of people don't like when ads pop up and stuff, and I'm still trying to rein it in. It's like there was one point early on where they were just like it was like ridiculous. There was so many ads that you couldn't even read the stuff. So I was able to kind of pare it back, and of course Google AdSense is like, well, you're gonna make less money. I'm like, yeah, but I want my readers to see the stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So, but if you could click on the ads, just that'd be great. Throw a couple cents at us every so often, and we can help fund this show. So we'd really appreciate it. And once again, that's havenpodcasts.com. In fact, at some point I'll put it in the chats here so you guys can see it. But today, I'm gonna say we're discussing a show that the wife and I watched, and it was early on when we watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes. We were like, "Shit, we got to get our asses back in church." So we actually ended up watching local Easter Mass this morning on TV because it was just too early. We couldn't get there. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, and just in time for Easter, we're covering the Netflix series called Midnight Mass from 2021, which I did
Yeah.
not know. I didn't know anything about the show going into it. I didn't know it was from 2021. I thought it was more recent, but it's great. And we'll get into it. I'll give you a general synopsis, and then we'll kind of break the episodes down. Excuse me. A young man returns to his isolated hometown on Crockett Island, hoping to rebuild his life after serving 4 years in prison for killing someone in a drunk driving accident. He arrives at the same time as a mysterious, charismatic young priest who begins to revitalize the town's flagging faith. However, the community's divisions are soon exacerbated by the priest's deeds, while mysterious events befall the small town. And that is just a generalization of the whole show. I mean, it's 7 episodes, but I thought that was a pretty good description of the
Yeah.
series without
I've
giving.
always loved the word exacerbated. It's like one of those words where once I found out what it meant, I was like, that's awesome. I'm going to use that word as much as I can.
It sounds like something you shouldn't say at the dinner table with your parents,
It
you know.
does.
I was caught
Nonetheless,
masticulating my food the other day.
masticating. Yeah.
Yeah, masticating.
Masticating my
Masticulating.
food means chewing, by the way, guys.
Excuse me.
I'm sure the audience for the show knows that already.
Yeah.
Um, didn't
So
mean to mansplain. Sorry. Or whatever that means.
So it was created by Mike Flanagan, who he did the movie Doctor Sleep from 2019, which was the sequel to The Shining, which I thought was very good. Did you see that, Mike Hill?
I liked it too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite good, actually. I was not expecting to like it, but it was good. Yeah.
I just remember
It's
the
not
villain
like
chick in
The
that.
Shining at all. It's its own separate movie,
Right? Yeah,
but
it's
it's very
basically
good.
Danny, the boy from the first movie, grown up and
Hmm.
dealing with this, and you meet other people that have the shine too. And I just remember the villain chick, and it was super hot.
Yes. She was Rebecca Ferguson. She was in some of the Mission Impossible movies too.
Oh, right, right,
It's like
right.
one of
Okay,
that other assassin. Yeah, she's pretty hot.
yeah. He also created Haunting of Hill House, which I think is based on. I think House on Haunted Hill, Legend of Hill House. There's a few other. They're all kind of rooted into this one book, and I think the original book title was Haunting of Hill House, and it was a 2018 Netflix series, which I thought was really good, and it had a couple of actors from Midnight Mass that were in that. Uh,
Yeah.
he
I really
basically,
liked that too. That was really good.
yeah,
That series. Yeah.
he basically said Midnight Mass was a passion project. It was deeply personal. He had a Catholic upbringing, just like we did, Michael and I, and
Is this the director or the writer?
he's the creator,
Oh,
and
the
he wrote
creator. Okay.
some of them. It was kind of difficult to find who directed. Oh no, I think he did direct them all. Actually, now that you mention it, um, he thought of it first as a novel, then as a film, and then he tried unsuccessfully to pitch it to networks for a TV show, and he finally, even though Netflix turned him down at one point, he finally got them to sign on. And Kate Siegel, who plays Erin Green in this, she's the chick who's pregnant, or is she? She co-created this with him. She
Hmm.
worked on the story. She was in he did a film called Hush, and in it, Midnight Mass is presented as the most popular book by her character, Maddie Young. And he sort of planted that in that movie. That was from 2017, and it was sort of an Easter egg. So when this finally came out, it sort of exists as fiction in the mythology of this movie Hush,
Hmm.
which I don't know anything about.
I kind of feel like I must have seen that, but I don't remember it because I my roommate and I watch so many horror things, it's crazy. So
Yeah,
um, I feel like I saw the movie, but I don't remember what it was about at all.
I don't either. I only can think of the Buffy episode called Hush, where those guys
Yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah,
heal everyone's voices.
that was awesome.
One of the best Buffy episodes.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's Kate Siegel. She plays Riley's childhood sweetheart, now a school teacher on Crockett Island, and is expecting a child. And then we've got Hamish Linklater plays Father Paul Hill, who's the enigmatic new priest at St. Patrick's Church, and he arrives to temporarily replace the aging Monsignor Pruitt, who leaves prior to the beginning of the show, I believe. He was in Battleship, but other than that, he's been in tons of stuff, and it's nothing I've ever seen.
Saw him in another thing before this where he played a really creepy psycho guy, but again, I can't remember what it was. My mind is like a sieve.
Do you ever watch a show that you really love, and then nine times out of ten, half the actors seem like they disappear off the face of the earth, and then when you
Yes.
finally look them up, they've been in tons of stuff. It's just nothing you've ever watched.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Find that
bizarre.
annoying. We've got Zach Gilford, who plays Riley Flynn. He's sort of the main character here. He's a former venture capitalist who returns to his hometown of Crockett Island after spending 4 years in prison for accidentally killing a woman in a drunk driving crash. To me, he's the poor man's Matthew Fox. I don't know if that's what he looked like to you or not.
Ha, ha. Half the people listening are probably like, "Who's Matthew Fox?"
He was the lead
Um,
in Lost.
the lead in Lost, yeah, and he was also in what was that Party of Five? He was the big brother,
Oh, right. I never saw that. He was Racer X in Speed Racer, the live action movie.
was he? Oh,
Yeah.
you know what I love about the big this. So for me, watching well, I had watched Midnight Mass all the way through before last year, I guess, and then I was watching it again, so because I knew we were going to talk about it. And the very beginning is the scene where Riley has. It's right after he has had the drunk driving accident and killed somebody, and he's sitting on the side of the road with his head in his hands, and the EMT comes over and like, I think he says, "Is she going to be okay?" And the EMT says no, and the guy starts like he says, "Oh Jesus Christ," or I don't know if he starts praying or he says something about God, and the EMT says, "While you're talking to God, why don't you ask him why he always takes the young people, vibrant people who have the, and those are the ones who always die, whereas the drunk asshole who hit them is always like comes out without a scratch, like
Right,
something
right.
like that." I thought it was funny that they mentioned God so early in the episode. It just kind of came out as like, what the fuck is God even doing? Like,
Right, right. And I have some thoughts on that and why people die young, and I'll get into that later when it comes up. We got a few other characters here. I don't want to get too much into the actors because there's so many of them in this move TV show, I should say. But some I wanted to point out Kristen Lemon played Annie Flynn. She was Riley's devout, forgiving mother. She was on that cool Showtime series in 1998, Poltergeist: The Legacy, which had nothing to do with the film series, but I used to love that show. Do you remember that, Michael? Do you remember me showing you the first episode?
you may have, but I don't recall.
They were these supernatural investigators, basically, and they were really cool. And in the first episode, the one thing I remembered from, like, 'cause it's been a while since I've seen it, is one of the main characters is pregnant, and she gives birth, and then they get the baby, they take the baby, but then all of a sudden the afterbirth and her uterus just drags her all around the room, up the wall, across the ceiling. And I
Placenta.
remember
Yeah.
I remember particularly John Enos being horrified when we were watching it.
I think of the placenta, right? Maybe that's the other
Placenta, that's
part
what
that
it was.
comes
I
out.
couldn't think
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
word.
yeah.
And but beyond that, the show's not that gruesome, but it was a cool short-lived show. I think it lasted a couple of years. I think it was enough to go into syndication after it left Showtime, or it got canceled. Um,
I don't remember it.
so all right, so we've got a ton of characters here, and I gotta say, I did not know anything about this going in. I didn't know the premise. I think if I read the description at one point, I forgot it. But you had suggested this, Michael. So what made you pick this show?
I wanted to say there's one more actor in the cast
Oh,
that
okay.
that there's uh Riley's dad was played by
Oh,
Henry
right.
Thomas, who was Elliot in E.T.
I meant to mention that. I forgot.
He's much older now, and But I've seen him in several things, over the years, not huge roles or anything, but every time I see him, I go, Elliot.
Yeah, Elliot.
Elliot. Ouch.
He was also in Haunting of Hill House show that Flanagan had done.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So, but
Yep.
I did not recognize him here. It wasn't until I started to do my show notes about, a couple episodes in, I started doing them, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's Elliot."
I think I noticed his name in the opening credits and then I was like
Okay.
looking for him. So, um, I picked the show not because I loved it the first time around, but because I thought this would be so interesting to talk about. Like when I finished watching it, I still had some questions and I was still like, well, that part was really fascinating and this other part was really weird. And it seems like the writer was trying to communicate all kinds of ideas through these characters and everything. And um in a way, it kind of made me well, nah, I'm not going to say it that way. But anyway, I didn't, it's not like I recommended it for the show like, "Oh, I love this. You guys got to see this." It was more like I really want to know what other people think of this because I watched it and I came away going, "That was kind of cool, but at the same time, what?" So I wanted other you know uh fresh eyes. I wanted to hear what other people thought. Why am I like stammering in the middle of my sentences suddenly today? That's not usually my problem. I find
That's
myself
fine. That's
grasping
fine.
for words.
I have to say, I if you hadn't recommended this, I probably would never have given it the time of the day. I can't
Mm.
talk either.
Uh,
I didn't even never even heard of it till you mentioned it. So I was glad. I like walking into things, especially like every once in a while the wife and I will see like, oh, what's playing at the theater? Oh, it was a horror movie. Watch like 2 seconds of the trailer and go, all right, let's go. And so I
hmm.
love going in cold, not knowing anything about stuff. Um, but I loved how it was shot. I thought visually it was good. They did a great job. I thought the acting was great in this. Um,
Yeah, I
it's
thought the framing of a lot of the use of light and shadow and a lot of the framing was really well done. Made it very dramatic and also very creepy at the same time.
yeah, yeah.
I thought they did a great job with that.
And like I said, this kind of at the beginning, anyways, it made me want to go back to church. I, you know, there was something I read about the creator who basically said he had this Catholic upbringing, and then he became an atheist. And I almost felt like he was kind of trying to slam the church, but I didn't get that at all out of this show. And we'll kind of go
No,
about that and pick that apart as we go. Um,
it
uh,
totally like you said, the two of us were both raised Catholic, and like watching them go through the paces in the course of the mass, I could feel myself reciting things that I learned as a kid, and
yeah,
you know, like, "Oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that." Except when I was going to church, we never drank the blood. We never drank wine. We
right.
always just went for the communion wafer. It wasn't even real bread. It was just like a wafer of cardboard, and that was it. Like nobody drank wine except for the priest and maybe one other two other people up on the altar. But it wasn't like, "Oh, here, everybody have some."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's kind of difficult since knowing the truth. Now, all right. So I watched
Yeah.
this and then I watched it again. And when you
Oh,
watch it the second time, you pick up on a lot of things that you didn't realize. So
yeah.
if you agree with this, Michael, I was thinking we should just go start with the episode one, and not to give anything away until it's revealed in our discussion. Does that work for you?
Okay. Yeah, we can try.
Because it's hard because there's stuff that you already know when you go back into it a second time about the
Mm.
characters, and it's like really interesting. And folks, if you haven't seen this, you probably should watch it first and come back and watch the replay of this. So, all right, here's the synopsis for episode one, titled it's book one, Genesis. After serving 4 years in prison for a drunk driving crash that killed a young woman, Riley Flynn returns to his Flynn Riley Flynn returns to his hometown of Crockett Island, a tiny offshore fishing village reeling economically from an oil spill which is crippling its fishing industry. Having lost his faith during his incarceration, Riley struggles to reintegrate with the town's devout Catholic community, including his parents, Annie and Ed, teenage brother Warren, childhood sweetheart and expectant mother Erin Green, and zealous parishioner Bev Keane. The community is also joined by Father Paul Hill, a young priest claiming to be a temporary replacement for the aging Monsignor Pruitt, who is on pilgrimage to the Holy Land. While out at night with his friends Ooker and Allie, Ooker, I don't know who names that kid Ooker, but okay. Warren spots strange movements. This is Warren. I thought it was Riley Flynn. I don't know why the description said, but Riley spots strange movements on a remote island populated by feral. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is Warren. He's one of the he's the brother. Spots
Brother, yeah.
strange movements on a remote island populated by feral cats, later mauled by an unseen entity. The following night, Riley sees the figure of Monsignor Pruitt walking along the beach amidst a raging storm, but the figure soon vanishes. The next morning, hundreds of dead cats are discovered along the beach. So, Michael, I think you agreed with me because we were kind of texting each other about it. The first two episodes are real slow burns and a little hard to get through. Would you agree?
Yeah, I also feel like I think they wanted it to be 7 episodes because seven is like a significant number in the Bible.
Oh, okay.
And at the beginning of each episode, it said like book seven or something, or but it had some kind of indication that made me think, oh, they did this on purpose. But I came away from it thinking, Jesus, they could have done this whole story in 4 episodes. Like, if they had wanted to tighten it up, they could have, because some of the dialogue in some of the scenes is like, holy shit, they're still talking? Like, they started this conversation 7 minutes ago, and we're still in the same scene, and they're still talking about the same topic. And yeah, so I mean, I'm the writing was good, the dialogue was good, but damn, there were times where it went on too long, or
Yeah.
they just labored something to the point where it was like, okay, we get it, move on, or show us more of what you're showing us. Like, if you're gonna string us along and not give us any real information, at least, you know, give us something more to chew on in the meantime. But
Right, right. And the
yeah, there's a
conversations
drag
were
factor.
super deep, but and I liked them, but yeah, they were like, really? I'm gonna go make a sandwich. I'll be back. Let me know when you're done.
Yeah, seriously. You have to be, and then you wouldn't have missed anything. Like, you go make the sandwich and come back, and you wouldn't have missed nothing important will have happened.
But it's funny that you said it could have been done in 4 episodes because that's exactly what I said. I might have even thrown it in my notes here because I felt like four would have been comfortable enough. You just shave off all the fat and you could get a
Yeah,
solid 4 hour miniseries out of it.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Especially since like the ending, I'm not going to say anything definitive, but the last episode was, it seemed like they saved all the real horror stuff for the very end almost. I mean, not
yeah,
all of it, but
but
it
like the
seemed
last
like
two episodes.
they were like hinting at it, hinting at it, hinting at it. They'd show you a little bit and you'd go, "Whoa." And then like they really never like just opened the gates and let it become horror until the final episode. And I was like, "Okay, they could have balanced it out a little." Because depending on what you knew about it or went into it, like I think I had indicated that we're doing it on Fright Lounge. So I told you it was like a kind of a horror thing, but you
Yeah.
wouldn't know that. You really wouldn't know that. I mean, there's little bits and pieces in the early episodes that are connected to horror ideas, but you know, it's you get to the third episode and you're like, is something going to happen? Or when is we got everything established? We understand the island. We know who the characters are. We get
Right.
it.
Right.
We get it. Yeah.
And I liked in early on too in the first episode, Riley keeps having these visions of the girl that he accidentally killed with like broken shards of glass that are reflecting the police lights from the
In her
accident scene.
face. Yeah. And
Yeah,
she's like lying on the pavement looking at him
yeah.
whenever he tries to go to sleep. Yeah.
And then also got this recurring dream where he sits in a canoe out in the middle of the ocean and he's the only one around. And it's like, I think, when we get towards the end, I have a theory about what that was supposed to mean. Um, but yeah, they do a lot. There's a lot of, how do I say it? They really set up a lot in the first couple of episodes that made me confused. I think the average person after the second episode would be like, fuck this and walk away. But if you give it till the third episode, that was where, at least for me, that was where I was sold. By the end, I was like, actually halfway through, I was like, all right, I'm in. I want to
Okay.
know what happened.
Now there's enough pieces falling into place that you're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
starting to build up a little momentum and you're starting to go, oh, okay. But then it was like, was it episode four I texted you about? And I was like, the first half of episode four is really long, but there's something really cool that happens at the end.
Yes,
I
yeah,
think it was episode four. And you
I
were
think,
like, yeah, I noticed all the episodes kind of drag in the middle, but then something interesting happens at the end.
yeah, yeah.
Another thing
Um,
I found unsatisfying about this was I felt like they spent too much time on certain, I guess maybe this is kind of an overall statement, but I felt like the creators spent too much time on some certain things and then like didn't even touch on other things that I thought it would have been. And this is like a really dumb example of it, but remember the cats all washed up on the shore
yeah,
after the storm, and they were like, "What the hell? All these cats are dead," and they're like, whatever. They look like they've been dead for a while. They're kind of decomposed or whatever. And they were like, "Oh, well, we don't know if they're diseased or not, so we're gonna just pull them all together and burn them, just in case." And at first, there's some debate about it, and then the sheriff's like, "Nope, this is what we're doing," and then they never showed them doing that.
right,
And it was like, so there was like a point later on where I was like, I guess once they started talking about doing it in my head, I got this idea that, okay, I was going to see that at least a glimpse of that, or somebody saying, oh, he's at the beach doing the burning, or like see the fire in the background or something, so that I would know, okay, that was done and then move on. But then I remember there was like several scenes later and I was like, wait, did they burn the cats? They said they were going to, but did they do, like, I hate when they do that in shows. They talk about something and then there isn't even like a glimpse of it later to like affirm in your head that yes, that thing they talked about for 5 minutes it was actually happening. Like show it.
that's a
Just
good
for a
point.
second. Don't dwell on it, but show. Okay, they burned the cats.
Yeah, yeah, just yeah, even like a cutaway shot, and then the camera pans away to something else.
Yeah.
You know, I
Uh,
thought it was interesting too. The show brings up a lot about things like if God exists, why is there suffering? You had
mm,
touched on that a little while ago. And I personally, I just think we can't really fathom the answer, whatever God is to you at home, if you're listening or watching. Um, my theory is if someone dies before their time, everybody goes, oh, they were so young. Why did they die before their time? I kind of wonder if maybe they're needed on the other side for some reason, whatever the other side is, whatever your beliefs
mm,
are. If you believe there's an afterlife, maybe their services are required, their skills are required for something we don't know, we can't fathom. That's how I rationalize it, anyways.
hmm,
Um,
I never thought of that.
yeah. So, Riley and is it Annie? No, who's the girlfriend? Erin.
Aaron.
I can never remember her name. I just kept calling the chick. I'm like the
I
guy and
think
the
that
chick.
yeah, that woman, yeah, me too. I think the woman, the actress's name is Erin, but what about the character? Is the
Let
character
me
Erin?
let me go back to the thing because uh
Maybe the character's Annie and the actress is Erin.
the character is Erin Green, the actress is Kate Siegel.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Annie's his mother.
Hmm.
So
Okay, got it.
so that was episode one. Did you have anything else to say before we go into episode two?
I'm having a hard time separating the episodes in my head, but no, I don't think so.
Okay. Episode two is called Book Two, Psalms. The townspeople cannot determine the cause of death for the cats found along the beach. Bev covers the church perimeter with the rodenticide 1080, hoping to fend off potential predators. Father Paul meets Lisa Scarborough, the wheelchair-using daughter of the mayor. She was paralyzed after being accidentally shot by the town drunk Joe Colley. During the island's annual Ash Wednesday Crockpot Luck Festival, Joe's dog suddenly dies after eating off of the food off of the ground. Joe suspects Bev is responsible. He despises her for extracting church donations from the townfolk after convincing them to accept a settlement with the oil company that poisoned the bay's waters, knowing it would benefit the church. That night, Erin, now working as a teacher, witnesses a mysterious figure on her property. Riley attends a one-on-one AA meeting with Father Paul at the town rec center. He condemns God for allowing such evil in the world, owing to his guilt over the fatal car crash. During the night, Bull, the island drug dealer, is attacked by an unseen assailant. During Mass that Sunday, Father Paul insists that Lisa rise from her wheelchair and accept the Eucharist. To everyone's shock, Lisa stands and walks.
That
So
was all episode two. All of that was episode two.
yes, yep.
Holy shit. Okay.
Um,
By the way, whenever you have a thing where everybody brings some food, we call it a potluck. But because they were on Crockett Island, they call it the crock pot luck.
Oh, I thought they
That's
were bringing
why.
food in crock pots. Okay.
Well, I mean, maybe that was part of it, but I think that they coined that name to, they thought it was cute, I guess.
That's funny.
And there was a shot of the dog eating a hot dog, that someone had left a hot dog or something on the ground. There was a shot of the dog eating something right before he started foaming at the mouth and like dying.
Yeah.
And then but during the scene where he's dying, there's nothing near his head at all. There's no indication that he ate something. So somebody fed him something and then took the plate away, or put something there for him to eat, and then maybe there was no plate. I don't know.
Right.
But
And
he ate
even Bev.
something or was given something, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bev did it because she was such a cunt.
Oh yeah, she referred to the dog as a menace, and I'm like, what are you, J. Jonah Jameson now?
And she was one of the only He's a
That dog's a
menace.
menace.
Yeah. So anyway, she was very she had like no empathy. She was one of these people who purports to be like a super Christian, like the ideal Christian, but yet really has no empathy for people. Just like you have to follow the damn rules exactly or you are Satan.
Right, right.
She was a little over the top.
One thing I neglected to mention in the first episode, although I think I said it in the synopsis, but that one kid, something attacked him. We don't know what it was at this point, and something went after the cats too. I think there was one cat that got
In
like,
the first episode, we
yeah,
saw something grabbing the cat and but
yes,
we
that's
didn't
right,
actually see what it was.
right. And then of course they all showed up dead, and the sheriff, who's new to the town, he basically realized the cats have no blood in it. So it was at that point I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I wonder if vampires are involved. Um,
Ah, okay. Yeah.
and of course the priest was kind of cagey. Father Paul was cagey about where he was, and I think even the girl in the wheelchair asks him, well, where did you come from? And he's like, oh, it's not about where we came from, it's about where we're going. So it,
Yeah. Wait, did we leave something out? Are we trying to avoid spoilers by leaving something out that was in the first or second episode? The cave? Was the cave in the first or second episode, or was it
uh
third?
I think the cave was in the third. Hold on, let me do a quick control F. Cave.
It may have been later on. I
it's
just am not sure.
it's in episode 3.
Episode three. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah. So I wish I could control F my life when I'm looking for something. It's like, oh my god. But when the
Control
chick
FML.
when the chick sees the thing in the window, that was freaky. I jumped. There were a lot of good jump scares in this.
Mm.
I
And the
think,
guy that dies is like he's like a drug dealer or something, right? And he's just like
yes,
walking down the street. I
full,
mean, not
yeah,
like a hardcore drug dealer, he does marijuana or something, but he's like walking down the street and there's like an abandoned house, and for some reason he kind of stops and looks and like approaches the door and goes, "Hello?" And somebody like his own voice goes, "Hello?" back to him.
yeah,
And then he goes, "Somebody there?" And he goes, "Somebody there?" Like just and
yeah,
he's like, and like a dumb fuck, instead of running, he takes another step into the house to figure out what's going on. And then this like shadow jumps from the other side of the room and like takes him in and kills him because you can hear him going, "Ah, ah, ah," and then
yeah.
he just that's the end of him. He's done. And then he just disappears, and people are like, "Oh, where did he go? I don't know. Where he was just
Right, right.
he's here and now he's not here." Yeah.
Oh my god. Did he came in on the ship? Did he live on the island? I guess he did because he had his lunchbox.
I
And he
don't know if
was
he lit.
walking.
I think he came and went. I think he came and went, and that's where he got his like supply from. And he would come to the island and sell while he was there, and then go back because there was a ferry twice a day from the island to the mainland.
Right,
Um,
right.
so I think went back and forth. But Joe Colley, the drunk guy, he lived on the island, and I guess whatever he got some from him for medicinal purposes. But I
Yeah,
felt so bad for him when the dog died. Every time a
yeah.
dog
That was
dies,
sad.
in any way, shape, or form when I'm watching something, I'm like, oh, and he was so upset.
Yeah, yeah. That was heartbreaking. That really they did
Mm.
a good job with that scene. So you've got Riley, and I think in the first episode they had a lot of people in the AA group, and then it was just Riley in the second episode. And
No,
I
they
think,
didn't have one at all.
oh, wasn't there some kind of group meeting though?
Uh,
Yeah. Doesn't really matter because it doesn't impact the story.
Well, I mean, there's so many committees in churches and stuff, so there may have been. But yeah, no, I remember the priest uh started the because Riley was going to the mainland. He was taking the ferry to go to his meetings,
Okay.
and I think as part of his plan, the guy didn't. He wanted people leaving the island as infrequently as possible, so he was like, "Oh, let's start our own branch of AA right here, and you
Yeah.
can stay on the island that way. You don't have to go back and forth all the time." And so it was just Riley. At first, Riley was the only one, and then Joe Colley came in, and they had two eventually.
Right.
But
Right. Okay. And by the way, I just wanted to mention Samantha Sloyan plays Bev Keen. She's the zealous lady. She's really good here, and she was
oh
also
yeah,
in another Netflix series called The Haunting of Bly Manor, which I think the creator of this show worked on that one as well. Can't recall if I saw that one or not. But I'm trying to find. So Lise is the little girl in the wheelchair. Okay, so Sarah is the doctor. She's the town's doctor,
hmm
and Mildred is her mother, who's getting older and has dementia. And Father Paul comes and visits her in this episode and does mass for her. Which I looked at my wife and I'm like, do priests like
Union.
do the full entire mass like to one person? I thought that was interesting.
I don't think so. I think he just wanted to make sure she got communion. Like he
Yeah.
wanted to. So I think he does like a little 10-minute spiel and whatever, but I don't think they do the entire
Okay.
like 40-minute
So,
thing.
anyways, the old lady sees the monster face at her window too, and that was pretty freaky. I did a lot, like I said, a lot of freaky moments in this, and it's a very slow build to when something actually happens. Um, and like you said, the dude, Bowl, that not Bowl, the I don't know, the worker
Joe.
Joe sticks his head in the house and he gets attacked.
Oh
And
no,
then,
no, Bull's the one that dies.
oh, I thought Bull
Bull's the
died in
one.
the first episode.
Well, Joe Collie doesn't die. Joe Collie lives through almost the whole series.
Right. Okay.
The drunk guy.
Maybe I read it in the description of the
No, I
series.
think Bull is the guy who
Yes,
brings the drugs, and he's the one who gets killed.
he's the island drug dealer. Yeah. Okay. That was
Yeah.
the thing. So yeah, folks, it is a confusing show. So bear with us.
Even though it's a small island and there's very few characters, it's there are still moments where you're like, wait, was that the other guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, one funny thing is the sheriff is Muslim. He and his son are Muslim, and he wanted a very remote post for whatever reasons in his previous life. He wanted to be as far away. He wanted a small town where like nothing happens. But anyway, he's the sheriff, and his I forget what his real name is, like Hamas or something. And the drunk guy in the town keeps calling him Sharif instead of sheriff.
Yeah.
Sharif. And he keeps correcting him. He's like, Sheriff.
Right.
Like, I thought that was kind of funny. That it was typical that the drunk guy would be the one to say that to him all the time. Yeah.
Let me see if I can find sheriff. So, oops.
Haman or something.
Sheriff, hold on, I went too far ahead. Sheriff
Yeah.
Hassan is his name.
Son.
And okay, Raul Coley plays Sheriff Hassan,
Mm,
who's the island's Muslim sheriff, as you said, which the island's predominantly Catholic population accepted, but many viewed skeptically. So yeah, there's a little bit of underhanded racism going on to some degree here,
yeah.
but not from everyone. For the most part, everyone kind
Yeah.
of you know,
But there's this like Bev especially. Bev is like the zealot, like she's pretty open about how the fact she thinks that because they're not Catholics, they're not Christians, that they're like
they're heathens.
you're heathens. Yeah, she talks to them like, oh well, this might not be the case for you, but for us, like, she does that so often.
I
You think I
hate
just
I
wanted to
hate the
slap her?
condescending way she talks to people. That
Ugh.
pisses me off.
And like you said, the actress is fantastic. The character is just such a bitch, but the actress is phenomenal. And there's certain scenes where like people start trying to say, wait a minute, hold on, what's really happening here? And she just gets right up in their face. She's like, do you doubt God? Are you questioning what God does? And if you are, then you have no right going into this. Like she just goes ballistic on people if she thinks their faith is shaking at all.
Right.
And she's so great, and the dialogue is so well written, and she's fantastic in this. But the character, it's because she's so good that we hate the character so much, I think.
Right. Right. I remember when I was a kid, my father saying, Jonathan Harris played Dr. Smith on Lost in Space, and my father goes, "Boy, that Jonathan Harris must be a great actor because I can't fucking stand Dr. Smith."
I know, right? He's probably the nicest guy in the world when he's not on set.
I heard he was. Oh man. All right. So we're gonna jump into episode 3, which is called Book 3 Proverbs.
Oh wait, by the
Oh,
way,
sorry.
the girl, when the priest tells her to stand up, everybody thinks he's being mean, but then she does, right? She stands
That's
up
right.
out of her
Yep.
wheelchair in the
Yep.
middle, in front of everybody in mass. Okay.
Yeah. And didn't they play? I think it was because I know they played it in the next episode, but during that scene, wasn't Neil Diamond's song "Holy Holy" playing?
They did play that song a couple of times. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, that's what
Excuse
I
me,
thought.
I'm not sure if it was in that scene, but yeah, that was in that couple.
I thought that was an appropriate song to play. It was really cool.
Yeah. And that
Okay, so
also,
oh,
it
sorry.
may have been that. I'm sorry.
It's
Go, go,
okay.
go, go,
No,
go.
you go. Go.
I was gonna say I don't know if it was episode 2 or episode 3, but there's one kind of montage that they go around and they show different people in the community whose medical ailments seem to be improving. The symptoms are
Yes.
kind of lessening, and it's kind of happening all around, like, oh, my back doesn't hurt anymore, and oh, I don't really need my glasses anymore, and they seem to be kind of healing. Oh, and I remember during a scene where they were going around the island showing like 5 or 6 different people realizing like, oh, I don't have arthritis anymore.
Yeah.
That scene, that Neil Diamond song was playing.
Yes, and that was definitely in episode 3. And if you watch carefully, folks, too, the if you notice certain characters have gray in their hair, and little by little it starts to go away. As Mike said, people are starting to lose their ailments, and they're also starting to get a little bit younger.
There's one character in particular who goes through a dramatic transformation.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway,
So book
but
3
more
Proverbs.
as dramatic as walking when you're in a wheelchair. But
Right, right.
yeah.
Crockett Island begins experiencing a religious revival after Lisa's sudden recovery. She's the girl in the wheelchair, which the residents believe to be a miracle. Lisa visits Joe and tells him of the hatred she has harbored towards him for causing her life ruinous injury, only to ultimately forgive him. I don't know if we explained it before, but it was a shooting accident and he accidentally shot her, and that's why she was paralyzed from the waist down.
He was drunk and he was just fucking around with his gun. He wasn't even really hunting.
Right,
And
right.
the gun went off and she got paralyzed. Yeah.
That reminds me, total aside here. But one time when I was a kid, my grandfather was changing his shirt, and I noticed he had a bullet scar on the front and the exit wound on the back. And I'm like, and he was in World War II, and I'm like, whoa, Grandpa, did you get shot in the war? And he goes, nah, Murray was cleaning his gun and it went off.
Oh man, I'd be so pissed. Like, you idiot.
Right. All right.
Check
So
before you clean the gun.
Joe is so moved he attends an AA session with Riley and Father Paul. Sheriff Hassan, whose Muslim faith puts him at odds with the town's Christian population, learns that his son Ali is studying the Bible. Later at a town meeting, he fruitlessly attempts to convince Bev to stop handing out Bibles to public school children. Father Paul collapses before Bev and the Scarboroughs. He dies after coughing up blood, only to suddenly spring back to life. In a flashback to the night before his first sermon on the island, Paul sits in a confession booth. He reveals the true story of Monsignor Pruitt. Near Jerusalem, Pruitt was caught in a sandstorm and discovered an ancient ruin where he was attacked by a winged, blood-sucking humanoid creature that fed him its lifeblood. Pruitt awoke the next morning to discover he had regained his youth, revealing Father Paul's true identity as a revitalized Monsignor Pruitt. Paul/Pruitt confesses that he believes the creature that attacked him is an angel, and its blood rejuvenating properties constitute a divine gift that he intends to share. So this is where we start to finally get some answers. Episode 3 here, and it's fucked up because he thinks Father Paul thinks this demonic thing is an angel just because it has wings.
Why? I'll never know. I mean, he's a Monsignor. He's been a Catholic, he's been in the Catholic Church his entire life, I guess, and he's very high ranking. You wouldn't think somebody like that would immediately go, "Oh,
Yeah, angel.
that's an angel," especially when it clearly appears to be a devil or a demon.
Right.
It looks demonic, and yet he's like, it's an angel.
Yeah, that was so weird.
My favorite
Um,
moment in that whole bit when he goes into the cave, because the sandstorm is so strong that he tries to find shelter and he goes into this cave, and the cave is of course super dark on the inside. And at one point he sees what he thinks are looks like eyes, or he sees these two glowing things in the darkness, and then he sees them and looks at them for a second, and then the two uh glowing things, like you could tell that like the creature blinked,
yeah.
like, and it was just that by itself was enough to tell him, oh, those are eyes, and like, oh shit, and I found that creepy. And
Yeah,
then but it was weird because the demon seemed to feed on him, and then there was a moment where the demon almost seemed to like change its mind, like it was just going to feed on him and let it be. But there was something about, he was the Pruitt was had a little dementia, so he was babbling about it being an angel or something. And then it seemed like the demon, I keep calling it the demon, but changed its mind and decided to like have him drink some blood too and share some of his, you know, I don't know.
his blood with
So
Father
yeah, his
Pruitt.
blood
Yeah,
was, so I don't think that that demon does that with everybody, but for some reason he was moved to help this guy on the edge of his death and whatnot.
and because he first saw him when he had his dementia, that makes me think that maybe that explains why he thought it was an angel, because he was kind of, not in his right mind.
Oh,
So
right.
he filed it away as, oh, I was visited by an angel, because I don't know if he sees it clearly after he drinks the blood from it, or maybe he does. I don't know, but it could
Well,
still be in his mind.
there's also the question of how it gets to the island, which implies that he did see it. Um,
That's true.
the
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's a good point. Um, and so let's get back here for a second here. So the doctor Sarah wants to do tests on the girl Lisa. Oh, and here's Dantes. Let's welcome him in. And oh, I'm sorry for the dead air, folks. I should have maybe been talking and
Dead air, dead air, dead air.
there he is.
Oh my God, you look so blue.
Well,
Oh,
it's
now you're not blue.
purple now.
Purple now. Now red.
How are you guys?
How you
Welcome,
Sorry.
doing?
Dantes, Prince
Happy
Regent of
Easter.
electronic dance music.
Happy Easter.
Happy
Happy
Easter,
Easter.
everyone. Sorry I'm late. It's raining here in Chicago.
Oh,
Yeah. What I miss?
We did a Fright Finds, and then we just covered the first two episodes, and we're in the middle of talking about episode 3. So do
Great.
you have anything you want to say about the first two without giving anything away? We've been trying not
yeah,
to.
we're trying really hard not to give away the where it goes just
Oh,
yet. We
this is
will, but
not fair.
I know. It's hard. It's hard.
It really is hard. Uh, okay. Well, first
But
glance,
we did get to episode 3 where the priest is bitten and given the blood to, and that's how he becomes young
He
again. And
gets youthed. Yeah.
so we know at least that much. We know that he got bitten, and yeah,
we
yeah,
talked about the pastor yet?
that's how he got young.
The priest?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh God, I that he's just really, 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 really awesome. I don't want to say too much without giving it away, but is he the devil or is he not the devil? Hmm.
I
What?
know. It's a little bit. Yeah, he tries to make what the audience seem to perceive as being evil. He tries his hardest to make it palatable to his congregation, and
I
so
felt that he obviously had an agenda, because he was very cryptic about where
Yeah.
he came from, who he really was. But I also got the vibe, and I think it's from the actor, that he was kind of a good guy.
mm,
So it was that he believed what he was saying. We were just saying how he in his confession, his flashback to his confession, he's
Yeah.
relating the story of how he left as an old man and went to Jerusalem and encountered something that attacked him, but then fed him its own blood, and then he got young again. And I thought that it was interesting that there's a lot of, we start to get into these parallels between religion And I
Yes.
don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but
Yeah.
Drinking blood. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
drinking blood, the converting Christ's body and blood to I'm sorry, converting the water and wine, the bread and wine to body and blood. And it's definitely, I had never thought about that before when it came to
Yeah.
mythological creatures.
It's a little odd.
It's very
Um,
odd.
dude,
Um,
where did you go? I can't see you now.
oh yeah, your light is
Ooh.
dying.
He's in the darkness.
um,
Um, yeah, so there was definitely that. When you Raj, you said that the creator treated this as like a project, like a personal passion project that he had a
yes,
lot of. I feel like that's probably the element that he was trying to convey the most, maybe because it kept sort of going back and forth between these really moving, uh, what are they called? Not speeches, but
monologue.
what's it called when a priest does
Oh,
his
homily. Yeah,
Sermons.
homily.
sermon. Thank you. Homily, yeah, sermon.
Yeah.
That he kept doing these sermons that were like really moving and really like, wow, he's really into Catholicism and Christianity, and it was
Mhm.
very like. But then at the same time, you knew he was kind of tainted with this other idea, and he was drawing, like you said, a lot of parallels between things, and
Yeah.
trying to make it palatable, trying to make it easier for regular, Catholics to sort of see his point of view eventually. And it's kind of creepy. I don't know.
So Dantes, did you find the first two episodes a little slow?
I did find the first two episodes a little slow. I have enjoyed tremendously, though, the Easter eggs that are like scattered all throughout all 7 episodes. I immediately saw the Oculus mirror. Did you guys catch the Oculus mirror? Have you
No.
guys Oculus?
I've heard of it, but I didn't notice
So
it.
it was the movie was actually made by the same director in 2013. So when I first saw it, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, is that the Oculus mirror? And it was, if you guys remember that movie,
I saw that movie. Yeah.
yeah, okay, so I see you, Michael. You're like, yes, I get it now. Yeah.
Where was the mirror though? Was it in his I don't remember where it was in Midnight Mass. Was it in his house or
It was in the house. Come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
In the priest's house?
It
Geez,
was
I
in the priest's
don't
house. He walked right past it.
I don't remember.
Okay, all right. Well,
Is there no reflection?
no reflection, of course.
know.
But there was a line that was said that ties it back to Oculus. So now I am challenging each one of you guys to go back and
Watch Oculus again.
yes, you have to. Like that's why I was so excited. I was like, Rigor knew what the hell he was doing when he chose Midnight Mass. And when I saw the director's name, I'm like, wait a minute, this is the guy who did Oculus. So
The
immediately.
Yeah, a chick from Doctor Who was in it, the redheaded
Yes, yes,
girl.
yes.
Yeah,
So it's
Oh,
almost like
yeah.
there's like this
Oh, I think I did see that.
there's like this
the hottie.
midnight mass mythology that was created prior to the movie this not movie but the
Yeah,
series being created, which is what I like.
he's been chewing on this for a long time. I get the sense that he's wanted to make Midnight Mass for quite a while. Yeah.
And what's so refreshing about this is, like I grew up watching the X-Files, like, and I still watch the X-Files. I'm like a livid X-Files watcher. Like I take my X
Avid.
avid. There we go. Sorry.
Livid means angry.
That damn X
Um,
Files.
X-Files.
well, sometimes I really love the X-Files, and when I first saw this, I thought of two different things. I thought of the X-Files, but I also thought it went a little bit. This has actually gone a little bit further than the X-Files by focusing in on the um, paranormal demon aspect. And I was so glad that they didn't go down the alien. I hate going down the alien rabbit hole. Uh,
Mm.
so this for me is almost like I can tell that he knows what he's doing. He's someone who's paid attention to the writers over at the X-Files. It also reminded me of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Do you guys remember that?
I did
I
not see it.
know the title, but I haven't seen it.
I would recommend watching it too. It basically is it tries to condense um like a horror movie into like four different stories.
Oh, maybe I did see that. Yeah, they condense it down into like 15 minutes each one or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I totally am like stoked that we are talking about
I
this.
need to see Oculus again. Wasn't there something that came through the mirror into the
Yep,
house or so?
yep,
Okay.
yep,
Okay.
yep. So
Okay.
So
I'm sorry, Rigor. I'm
no, go
like
ahead, go ahead.
jumping all over, but I just enjoy the fact that you have a guy who has taken the time to weave together a narrative over the last decade. And
Yeah.
it's exciting. Like he knew that he was going to do this project, and it all makes sense.
Yeah.
I think he was hoping that he would get to do this project. He got
That's it's
rejected
even better.
several
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
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 Well, so let me just clear up a couple things. It was actually Michael who picked this one. I had never heard of it. I didn't know anything about it going
I got
in.
to give you a fist bump. Boom. Boom.
Thanks. Thank you. Boom.
I thought it was appropriate for Easter too. It just so happened that our schedules, ended up working so we could
Yeah.
do it tonight, which is Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
The movie kind of centers around Easter. But
Yeah.
Oculus has Karen Gillan is the chick you were trying to think of,
Yes.
Yes.
who she was on Doctor Who. She also plays Nebula in the Avengers movies.
Yes. That's it. Yeah.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
it was written and directed by the dude Mike Flanagan, and also in it is Katie Sackhoff, who played Starbuck in the remake of
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica series.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And Brenton Thwaites is in it too, and I looked at his face. I'm like, he is so familiar to me. He plays Nightwing on Titans,
Oh,
Oh,
which
get
is
the
on
freak out.
HBO.
Really?
So, but yeah, so
Oculus
I
is
guess
scary. I remember that being scary.
Yeah.
Flanagan had Midnight Mass as a book appear in his film Hush, which we mentioned at the top of the show.
Yes.
So he seems like he does a lot of that Easter egg world building kind of stuff, which is really
That
cool.
is so cool. I really love it.
Just down Oculus Mirror. Sometimes I got to write stuff down so I can remember it later.
Yeah, I don't recall if I've seen it. I had the trailer just sort of playing on mute here, and it doesn't look 100% familiar, but I feel like I would have seen it because
I
Karen.
remember it because I remember because it was about a mirror, and I also remember it
Yes.
because the hottie from Doctor Who was in it.
Which, by the way, a really good mirror movie is called Mirrors with Kiefer Sutherland. I remember enjoying
That's a
it.
great one too.
Yeah.
Really is.
So anyways, we're just sort of breaking the episode down. We've got the doctor Sarah. She wants to do tests on Lisa, the girl who can suddenly walk, but the parents don't want it. They're like, well, it's a miracle. We're just gonna go with that.
We don't want to question it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Her mother is clearly getting younger, which is funny because the first time through, I didn't even notice until I guess this episode, and I'm like, wait a minute, she's clearly a young woman with old makeup on, and
Yeah.
but obviously they do that for a
That was
reason.
on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I did think was weird, though, was that Riley's mom almost immediately didn't need her glasses anymore. And Sarah's mom um, was getting younger, but she kept her glasses until like the very, very end and finally took them off. And I thought, well, that's maybe they did that. Who knows why they did. Maybe they did that because they didn't want us to notice as quickly how young she was getting.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
then her mind was getting sharper too. Like her dementia was going away and her memory
Right.
was improving and she could solve problems and remember things and
Yeah, exactly. And there was an interesting conversation that Riley has with Father Paul, where he's in therapy and he's like, how did you know she was going to walk? You had to know beforehand. And the priest basically says, well, I just felt connected to her. And there's a reason for that. We haven't quite 100% said exactly what's going on here, but when you watch the show through and then go back and watch it again, and knowing how everything's going to turn out and why things are happening, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
and it
So
goes a lot faster the second time.
yes.
Especially if you binge it, it's just like, oh, when you can zone out a little bit and when you got to pay attention and it just yeah. So
And I will say this too. I thought the boy, and I didn't notice it obviously the first time around, but the boy, there's a boy in it. I can't think of his name. He might be Riley's brother. I'm not sure. But he's kind of interested in Lisa. They seem to be like attracted to each other.
yeah.
And they end up going out on a canoe, and that's where they have their first kiss. And it foreshadows something later in the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in this one, you mentioned that Father Paul gives a homily that's really deep and has a lot of layers to it. But then, of course, he has a dizzy spell in the middle of it,
Yeah.
and you know, he passes out like right in front of everybody. And is that the point where he dies? Because I didn't quite get the
No,
first
that
sense of him
that
dying.
doesn't happen in the church. That happens in the rectory, or the
Oh, okay.
little house that the priest lives in. And it's like Bev is in the rectory. I don't know if this is he doesn't die until episode 4, right? Or something.
I don't recall. No,
But
because
anyway,
I
Big
just read it
four.
in the description.
oh, you just read it. Yeah, that's true, true. So yeah, there's a few people in there with Bev, and they're talking about something, and he just walks in choking
That's
and
right.
sputtering and stumbling, and then he just collapses onto the floor and pukes up blood and dies. And
That's right.
and then within like 10 minutes he comes back, and
And,
everyone's like, it's a miracle.
and that's a great scene because he literally crushes like an end table, and you're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god!" when it happens.
And that sermon that he was giving was very um, not apocalyptic, not apocalyptic, but very militaristic, almost
Yeah,
like encouraging like everybody, you will be a soldier in God's army, and
yeah, get
um,
ready because
yeah,
here
get
it
ready,
comes.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I honestly, to tell you the truth, like I was really, really, really trying to figure out where that was going, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys figure out where that was going?
Uh,
I interpreted it as he was trying to build people up, like almost like brace yourself and screw your courage to the sticking place, like when the shit hits the fan, like it's going to, like, hold your ground kind of thing. I don't know. And then also the was it Sarah and her mom were in church at that time, and Sarah, who clearly recognized him right
Yeah,
off the bat. Did you notice how she
I
recognized
noticed
him
it
immediately
totally.
yeah.
when he came in?
Yeah.
She was like, but anyway, later on, there when they're in the church, she's listening to him give this sermon, and she's more and more like furrowing her brow and being like, "What the fuck is he like? What?" And then she leaves, and she's like, "That is not the man that I knew. Like that is not,
Yeah,
you
we're
know,
not going back there.
that's not. He's. I'm not going back to this church again because I don't know what he was saying, but it was way too aggressive."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked when when they kept flashing back to him in confession, describing his journey from being an old man to a young man. You see wood carvings depicting certain scenes.
Yeah.
Mm,
I
Yeah.
thought that was sort of like
Really
if
cool.
you've ever been in a church that has wood carvings of the Stations of the Cross all the way around,
yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
relics, kind of.
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was really interesting too that they chose to put that in there. Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then the scene where Lisa, the girl, encounters or she confronts Joe was
yeah,
I thought was really touching. I thought
yeah.
she basically tells him her point of view of what happened when she got shot. She didn't feel anything. All of a sudden there was a bang and she was on the ground. And then she tells him it gets powerful because she's telling him how much she hates him, how she wants him to suffer, how much he took away from her,
Mm.
and then she forgives him.
Yeah.
And the poor guy, he's like in tears. He's just a blithering idiot at that point. And it was like, watching it at home, you're like, that was really good, man.
Totally, totally. Because he doesn't think he deserves forgiveness. And then when she's telling him how much she hates him and everything, that's like the first time she's let that out. And, he's been hating himself. So, it's like reinforcing him feeling like shit about himself.
Mm.
And then she forgives him, which almost makes him feel worse because he's like, I don't deserve forgiveness.
Yeah.
And she just leaves, and he's, like you said, he's a blubbering mess.
Yeah.
And
So,
then there's a great scene where Joe ends up going to the AA meeting with Father Paul and Riley, and I think Father Paul is like telling Riley, well, why don't you, tell him your experience. He's like, I got nothing, and he goes, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. He says like bullshit like 4 times in a row, and you're like, oh my god, this priest.
Very holy.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then but then Riley basically says, he definitely argues. I'm sorry, the priest definitely argued that Riley should give his perspective, and he basically reassures the guy that yeah, this therapy is going to be good for you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. That was a nice. It
Yeah.
wasn't another one of those protracted scenes like we had in the first couple episodes.
Right. Yeah. He was like, this has changed. That's changed. You were able to admit to this. Da 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 da. Yeah. That actor is so intense. The guy who played the priest.
Yeah,
But that's why it's really believable, because how
Mm,
else can you get that many people to consume anything unless it's from a trusted source. And what is
Right.
the most trusted source beyond a doctor? Your pastor. Like it's just
Right.
brilliant. To me.
Yeah.
Like I almost thought of Jonestown.
Yes,
Mm.
I was thinking that.
Which
Like
brings us to the reason why everybody's feeling better is they're taking communion at the church, which is
I need some of that
Well,
wine.
are
blood
we
from
there
the
yet? Are
demon.
we quite there? I don't think they revealed it just yet.
Well, okay. I'm
Oh,
kind of rolling us
sorry.
forward a little bit.
All right.
Sorry,
Well,
me
let's.
and Mike kill both. Sorry.
No, you're good. You said Jonestown, which was very indirect, but then I took it.
Yeah. And there's another
That's the
parallel.
Kool-Aid, baby.
There's another thing I thought of too, which I'll come to. But basically, the only other thing I want to say that happens in this episode is the sheriff's kid, Ali. He kind of wants to check out the church. He's like, well, everybody in town's going there. I just want to see what it's all about. Which, if it were me, I wouldn't mind. I'm like, yeah, go check it out and, decide for yourself what you think. But it was kind of, well, it was kind of good that the sheriff didn't want him to go, although it doesn't really work anyways. And the kid ends up, going to the church, and we'll
Yeah.
explain what happens. So let's jump into book 4, Lamentations. Um, I know there's a Conan quote in there somewhere, but Crockett's resident doctor, Sarah Gunning, discovers the lamentation of the women. Um, Crockett's resident doctor, Sarah Gunning, discovers that Erin's fetus has mysteriously disappeared from her uterus and concludes that Erin has miscarried. A distraught Erin travels to the mainland the next morning for a second opinion. However, the doctor cannot find any evidence that Erin was ever pregnant. Father Paul reveals that sunlight burns him after his resurrection, and Bev deduces his true identity as Monsignor Pruitt, which his picture's hanging on the wall, for God's
I
sake.
know. It's like,
How could
hello.
they not know that?
Except that it's so counterintuitive. Like you would never think, oh, clearly that's him.
Right. It's
Last
such
time
an
you
old
saw
picture.
Pruitt, he was 98 or whatever, and then now
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this guy's 30, and I'm going to assume that it's him. But still, the resemblance was striking, especially for the doctor's mom, who knew
Yeah.
him when he was much younger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, unable to perform his duty in broad
He said
daylight,
dirty.
Paul performs an at-home Eucharist with Sarah's elderly mother, Mildred. She suffers from dementia, but recognizes Paul as Pruitt. Joe visits Father Paul that night and sees him drinking the angel's blood, which Paul has been diluting with the blood of Christ and feeding his congregation. Overcome by an insatiable thirst, Paul kills Joe and drinks his blood. Bev, Mayor Scarborough, and the local handyman Sturge discover the scene the following morning. Bev elects to cover it up, believing Paul's resurrection to be an omen of the second coming of Christ. During an AA session, Paul claims to Riley that Joe is absent because he's visiting his sister. Riley, knowing Joe's sister to be deceased, returns to the rec center late at night to confront Paul, but walks in on the angel shedding its blood into a decanter. Upon seeing Riley, the angel attacks him. So at this point, we know now it's vampires.
Yep.
It's not
Clearly.
a demon.
No.
It
It's a demonic vampire, though. This guy is full on. He's like Nosferatu.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not
with
like
wings.
he's not like one of these people who can blend into society vampires. He
stands out.
stands out, man. It's not Dracula we're talking about. This
That's
is
our roommate, Peter. He's 4,000 years old. He doesn't go to apartment meetings. What we do in the shadows joke there for anyone who
Yeah, that's a messed up show. It's great.
I was thinking the movie. I haven't actually watched the show. I got to check that out.
Oh, the show. I saw the episode in the show where they have like a scuffle with a little gang of gang of werewolves. It's really funny.
I love the
Really funny.
spin-off show. What is it? Oh, it's the one about the New Zealand cops. Oh shit, I can't think of the name of it now. Well, I'll look it up, but it's a spin-off, and there's two cops that appear in the movie and in the TV show, and I guess they get their own show.
Oh.
It's oh my god, but it's absolutely hilarious because they're so straight, but yet they're in these ridiculous situations, and they're like, well, he flew across the room, so I had no choice but to pull my gun and ask him to stop.
All right. So anyway, getting back to
So yeah, we get that Bev comes in and Father Paul's sitting on the bed and she's
that.
about to open the shades, and he's like, no, no, no. Oh, the sunlight hurts my eyes. And
Yeah.
he's already got scars on his hands that are healing, and he
Yeah.
sticks his hand in for our benefit.
He's like testing himself. Yeah.
And
Now that was something that I thought was odd in the beginning, because I mean, being that we all watch horror all the time, the priest goes into the cave and the thing flies over and drinks his blood and then feeds him his blood. I'm like, okay, that's a vampire.
Yeah.
So when the next day wakes up or the same day, I don't know, and he goes back outside the cave, the sunlight doesn't affect him. And in the first few episodes of the show, he's walking around during the day and he's fine. And it wasn't until, like you said, he died and then came back that, suddenly sunlight affects him. But I wanted to know what prompted him to die at that particular point. Like what was that in between, like,
What killed him?
probation period or something? And then he was drinking the blood a little bit, so he was staying really young, but he wasn't affected by sunlight yet. And then he died just out of the blue. He just fucking died and fell on the floor. And then after he came back, then he was like full on vampire where the sunlight hurt him. And I was like, what the fuck happened in, like, first of all,
In between, yeah.
how are there levels to this, and what caused him to die suddenly at that moment? Like, was it just like a slow burn evolution of his, that's one of the questions I walked away with, like, what the hell? Because he just walked into the room and died. Like, there was no.
Yeah.
Right, because everybody else, as the show goes on, they something kills them, and
Yeah.
then they come back. But they already have to have had the blood in their system
Hmm.
for that
Right.
to happen.
Well, that's not until way, 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 way later.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um,
But no, I mean, but look what happens to Riley, which we're not quite there yet. But the way it happens to Riley is way faster than what happened to Pruitt.
well, because he gets his throat ripped out by the
Yeah.
engine,
That's
Well,
it.
and
not
then
really. He gets
does he?
he gets drunk out of almost the same way that the Monsignor did, except one was in the cave and one was in the.
Oh yeah,
It jumps on top of him and drinks him almost dry, but it did. I don't think it killed him, or maybe it did. Maybe it did. Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
yeah,
You're right.
yeah. Because he
You're
was
right.
dead, and
You're
then
right.
he
Because he,
came back.
yeah, then he came back and the guy said, "Take it easy." You're right. You're right. He did die. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. My bad.
So,
Yeah.
and then what was the thing about the baby disappearing from her stomach? I thought, or her womb. I Did they explain that? Because I wasn't quite sure. I'm like, did
I think her body just reabsorbed it, like saw it as food and reabsorbed it.
okay, all right.
Yeah, that's kind of the only way I sort of yeah, took that. I mean, especially when you think about how the creatures that we know about that are similar, they do sort of eat their own kind, and if they feel that the baby is not meeting the genetic code, they'll cancel it by eating it. And so that's kind of the feeling I got also too, but it still just doesn't explain,
Like, how does she not have the chemicals in her body to reflect the fact that she did have a baby? Because the doctor on the mainland says you were never even pregnant at all.
Yeah. I think they may have just done that to freak the audience out.
or
Maybe.
was it a dream? I mean, because I'm still sort of
Well, you could look at her and see that she was pregnant in the first couple episodes.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. They kind of tried to play it off as maybe she's got, mental issues, because that's happened. People have hysterical pregnancies because
Yeah,
there's
but we
something wrong.
saw in the
Right, yeah.
early episodes, we saw the ultrasound. We saw that there was a baby.
That's right. That's right. We did
And
see
it
that.
could also be like, I also thought of Alien too. Like there
Mhm.
was a few, I can't remember which alien it was, but I remember there was a scene where, or was that Prometheus, where the gal was like pregnant and like she had,
Prometheus.
yeah, you remember what I'm talking. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so gross.
That that scene, just I was like hiding under the seat.
Isn't it just foul, dude? Like
It was so disturbing.
that's the only words that you can use for something so fucked up like that is foul and disturbing.
God,
Guys, watch
it
that movie.
was so. I mean, I love that scene, but it scared the piss out of me. And then it was like disgusting. And then I was thinking about how desperate the character was. And then once she basically succeeded, she had to escape out
Yeah,
of the room before anything else happened, and that scared the piss out of me. And man,
yeah.
that was a really intense.
I'll have to watch that again. I saw that a long time ago, and I don't recall. I don't remember any of
Prometheus.
it.
It was pretty gross.
Yeah,
It was pretty
Prometheus was.
gross.
I didn't like the movie, but I thought that scene was good.
I liked watching Fassbender get his head ripped off.
That's always nice.
It was so great. And then he got smacked with his body, got smacked with his head, remember? And yeah, it was great. Because he's not much of a great actor. I said it.
Speaking of which, there's a new
I think
Alien.
it depends on the movie, but yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's Prometheus, sure, wasn't it?
Speaking of which, there's a new Alien movie coming out called Alien Romulus, and I guess
Jesus
the director
fuck.
says it's set between Alien and Aliens,
Ooh.
and both James Cameron and Ridley Scott gave him his not only gave him his blessing, but they gave him notes about the production,
Why
and
can't they just leave
loved
that
it so
shit
far.
alone, Igor? I'm
Let
so
it
tired.
die.
Why can't they just let it be?
Alien, Terminator, all of it. Just stop already.
Especially
If
Alien.
it makes
We're
money,
talking
they'll
like,
keep doing it. You
how
know?
old is this franchise?
That's true.
1979 was the first film, so
But
As
they
long
haven't
as
even
there's
made
money,
as much headway
yeah.
as Star Wars has. I can't take another Alien. I can't. They've killed it. They killed it with AVP. They killed it with Prometheus. That was supposed to be a sequel. They blew.
Yeah.
I like
There's
the Alien
no
versus Predator movies, and
with
I liked
Alien
Prey.
and
Prey was awesome.
That was pretty
Prey
good.
was pretty good.
It's pretty good.
And they're making another one too. They're making a follow
Yeah.
up to that.
Yeah.
No.
But shit, what was I going to say? I don't after Aliens and T2, like I don't even view those as franchises anymore. I view all of them as like one shots. And like some of them are better than others and some of them are god awful and some of them have some pretty cool scenes, but I don't see them. I can't. If I think of them as connected, it just makes me sad because the crap outweighs the good.
Oh
But if I
God,
think,
does it?
okay, the first two movies were awesome, and then there was a bunch of stuff,
I
and
mean,
I
that
look at them
crap
each
with that
separately.
girl in the early 2000s. What crap was that? I know we're all about, empowering women and raising women up, but God, she should not have been a Terminator. Like, what?
Oh,
The
in
third
the
one?
third
Yeah.
one,
Was it the
Claire.
third one with the little skinny blonde girl who was
Yeah,
flipping her body around and shit?
it
Who
was a
looked like a
T1
robot?
million. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they had to bring in like a new type of Terminator every single time, and it was like,
Right.
oh my God.
Michael, were you with me when we saw the third Terminator in the theater and in the the movie, the climax of the movie, all of a sudden the fire alarm went off and we thought it was real. We thought it was, we thought it was part of the movie and it turned out it was real. And so we had to all leave. We come back and we sit back down and there was literally like a minute left in the film and they gave us all free passes.
No, I wasn't there for that.
Because it was like the nuclear missiles are launching and it was like, and all of a sudden inside the theater, and we're like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
Whoa, man. Immersive experience.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but that happened to me when I saw Fight Club.
Oh, really?
I got like an hour into Fight Club, and then all of a sudden it was like we had to evacuate the theater, and then they gave us passes. And I went back the next night because I was like, I gotta see how this movie ends. I don't care what else is happening. I gotta go back and see how that movie ends.
That's funny. That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole show on those kind of things, but
Right.
At least they're not into like Halloween territory where every so many movies it splits off into a parallel Earth version, you know.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's another one that needs to stop. I don't, it's so funny because, as a musician, I have to come up with new material consistently. And it just behooves me that, these big ass, fucking, $1 million companies can't do anything better than go fucking remake shit. I wouldn't have a career if I kept remaking everybody's fucking shit. I mean, what the fuck?
You know what you got to do as a musician? Make a Christmas song.
I will not.
And then you'll make $1 million because every year when Christmas comes, these places, they want every Christmas song they can find and they'll just play it. So like, even if you make a bad Christmas song, you'll be famous for the rest of your life because everybody at Christmas time will be like, oh, isn't this the song by blah, blah, blah?
I like Christmas, but I don't love it that much to like make a song about it. I mean,
no.
We were listening to Christmas music one year and I'm sorry. Yeah. And during the regular time, I was listening to some 50s music and one of my wife's kids goes, that sounds like Christmas music because a lot of the Christmas songs are old,
yeah.
Like whatever. So anyways, getting back to Midnight Mass, what are we in episode 4 now?
Yes.
I thought there was an interesting parallel here that they brought up, and I kind of touched on it earlier that I had never really thought about it before, but you've got the parallel well, it was the body and blood and the water and wine, the bread and wine kind of thing. But also I thought there was an interesting parallel here between Joe, who's wrestling with trying not to drink, and Father Paul, who's wrestling with trying not to drink blood. And
Yes.
I thought that was a real nice juxtaposition of him in the store, and he's just staring at the beer, and he's like, I shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
I really should. And then the sheriff's just standing behind him, going, "Hey, Joe, how's it going?" You know?
I like how Joe finally turns to the refrigerator case and says to the beer, "Fuck you," and walks away from it. Like, you go, Joe. But that scene where Joe dies, oh my
Oh,
God.
but
Oh,
Father Paul's hugging him, but he won't let go, and Joe's
let
trying
him
to wrestle
go.
free, and then boom, he
And
pulls away,
finally
and
he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And he whacks his head on the corner of that thing, that piece of
yeah,
furniture, and just starts bleeding all over the floor. And it's more than the priest can handle.
and then he
What's the
starts
priest's name?
licking
Oh,
the blood off the floor.
Pruitt. Yes, like a dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they cut back, and they you see him like latched on to the fucking guys, the drunk guy that Tom, Joe, Bill,
Joe, yeah,
Frank,
Joe
Joe.
Hardy.
He's like latched onto his head like a leech almost, just like sucking out all the blood that's pouring out, like that would be pouring out onto the floor through his head. Just like, oh, it was so disturbing and so. I mean, that's horror. That scene, that was a horror scene.
Yeah, and
And the
that's when
fact that Bev tries to like cover it up as soon as she sees it, she's not even phased.
I
She just goes, okay, all right then, let's deal with this. Let's clean this
right.
up.
Yeah.
It's like, Bev.
But this is where I think at some point here we learn a little bit more about his past, and then we're also everyone's shocked except for Bev that he comes back to life, and then we see the picture, the old photo on the wall with him in it, and so that sort of cements it. Now he really is Monsignor Pruitt.
Even Joe was looking at it before he died. He was like, "It's uncanny. You could be his son." And da
Yeah.
da da da. It's just like, Joe, come on, Joe, come on, catch up to
Um,
us here. But that scene was just, it was so, I think it was so horrific because it was tragic.
yeah,
Like the priest couldn't let him go because he was so close to Vanes, and he was like really fighting not to bite him, I think.
yeah,
And he was just struggling, and then the guy's like fighting against him, and he accidentally slams his head and starts bleeding, and then it's like, oh, it's all over. Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, the best horror scenes are like scary and tragic at the same time, I think, in some cases.
yes, yeah,
And it was like, oh, if only those events hadn't quite transpired in that exact order at that exact time. If he had hugged him in the middle of the room, then he wouldn't have hit his head on that furniture, or like, oh, it's just so awful.
It is.
and one
It-
thing I liked about this show too is that, of course, you'd like I liked the fact that I didn't know they were vampires. Like I said, when we talked about the dead cats showing up and the sheriff
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, there's no blood in them," I was thinking, "Oh, vampires," and then I was
Mm.
thinking, "No, it's going to be something else," and then
That's what I
it was
thought.
vampires. But I liked how train of thought just derailed. It
Sorry.
was
Vampires.
I can't remember now.
So what made you realize that it was vampires? You said you didn't know
Oh,
at first.
no, the cats having no blood made me kind of
Okay.
speculate. Oh, are they vampires? And oh, that's what I was going to say. Um, like Dantes, you pointed out something I totally missed, which was he didn't have a reflection in the mirror. I'm going to go
Yeah.
back and look at that now. I
Mm.
liked the fact that they didn't. They followed most of the vampire rules, but they didn't ever state them or spell them out. It
Right.
just was sunlight will burn them. That's all they got to do is show you that, and you don't need to be told it.
Well,
And
it didn't
even
click for. Sorry,
Go
it
ahead.
didn't click for me until the vial like burned up.
Yes.
Holy
Yeah.
crap! I mean, look, like I just love when people. I don't want to say reinvent the wheel, but add something different to it.
Yeah.
And this is definitely that because it took me a while to catch on to even think that it possibly could have been a vampire. I thought it might have just been like a chupacabra. I know that sounds crazy. I didn't know what I was getting into. I mean, I didn't. Um, And then also too, when I think it's Aaron, right? Aaron, when she starts confessing about, how she's starting to believe everything, and that's
Yeah.
really when I knew, like, okay, these are vampires.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's jump into
That whole
episode.
conversation of like, what do you think happens when you die? That she and Flynn have, Aaron
Yeah.
and Flynn have on her couch. That conversation took like 25 minutes. That was the longest fucking conversation. Like that's when I texted you, Raj, and said,
Yeah.
"Hang in there, because once you get past the middle, it is something." But was it episode 4 when they went out on the canoe at the end, or was it 5?
Ooh,
Uh,
let me look at my notes.
when who went on the canoe?
Aaron and Riley.
I think
Oh,
it's episode 4, right?
no,
Was
I
it
don't
4 or 5?
remember.
The 5.
I think it was 5.
Yeah, I think it's, let's see. Hold on, let me just control F quick. Canoe. Yes, yeah, it's episode 5, which
Okay.
about to. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's episode 6.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So we won't
That
mess
makes more
that up.
sense. Okay.
So let me read the description of episode 5. It's book 5 gospel. I thought it was book versus gospel. Um it was book V gospel. I missed the colon there. Um, Concerned over Riley's sudden disappearance, Aaron files a missing persons report with Sheriff Hassan, who hypothesizes that Riley may have relapsed or committed suicide. At Mass on the evening of Good Friday, Father Paul delivers a sermon rife with militaristic rhetoric, urging the congregation to prepare for war as soldiers in God's army. The homily upsets Mildred Gunning, whose physical and mental states have rapidly improved following Father Paul's visits. Later that night, Riley appears on Aaron's doorstep and asks her to go offshore on a boat with him. Oh, I guess it is here.
Uh,
Um, yeah, it is here. Aaron, while suspicious, agrees. Rowing far away from the island, Riley reveals to Aaron what happened to him. After being attacked by the angel, Riley rapidly recovered under the care of Father Paul, when who then revealed his true identity to Riley and told him that he believes the angel's blood is a gift from God and has been mixing it into the communion wine to heal the residents of Crockett Island. Riley then left the rec center disgusted and deposited farewell letters for his family and Pruitt before visiting Erin. Riley tells Erin he brought her on the boat to isolate himself and declares his love for her. Riley combusts in the sunlight and quickly burns to ashes as the sun rises, and Erin screams in horror. Okay, I when I searched it, it came up because that picks up Canoe
right
later.
after.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so that
Um,
was fucked up. But I wanted to just real quick before you go, Michael, I wanted to say Father Paul says, he goes, in the army of God, conscience is standard issue, and he states that that's the Rifleman's Creed, which was a Western show from the 60s. The actual creed, I looked it up, is my rifle and I are the defenders of my country. We are the masters of our enemy. We are the saviors of my life. So be it until victory is America's, and there is no enemy but peace.
Oh wow.
mm,
So I thought it was interesting. He kind of took it and, changed it to his own.
tweaked it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
tweaked it for what he wanted. But it was kind of a nice, obscure reference if you didn't know The Rifleman, which is a great show if you ever get a chance. But what were you going to say, Mike?
Um, that scene where he when he take took her out on the boat, Riley took Aaron out on the boat. I thought, oh, he's getting like there's a point at which, he's explaining everything that happened to her. But before he does, she's like, "Why'd you bring me out here? Why'd you bring me out here?" And no, I'm sorry. She says, "Why'd you bring me out here?" And he says, "Okay, I need you to just listen. And you're gonna think I'm crazy, but just listen, and I gotta tell you this stuff." So he tells her the whole thing about how he died and got attacked by a demon and turned to a vampire, whatever, but he doesn't use those words. But he tells her the whole thing, right? Like you said.
Yeah,
And then she says, "Oh, so what did you do? You brought me out here where like there's nowhere for me to run to, there's nowhere for me to go. What are you gonna do now? What are you gonna do to me? Are you gonna change me or whatever?" I don't know what she said, eat, kill me. And he says, "No, I brought you out here where there's no place for me to run to." And then, like you said, then the sun starts coming up and he's like professing his love for her and saying, "My advice for you is to just run. Just
yeah,
don't go back to the island. Just get the hell out of here." And then he starts burning alive in the sunlight, and just like, which simultaneously, sacrificing himself so he doesn't have to be a part of all that stuff. Um Punishing himself for all the hatred that he had toward himself earlier in his life for things that he did, killing the woman in the accident, and at the same time proving to Aaron that everything he just said is true
right.
by just burning up into ash right in front of her. I thought that was the most amazing thing. Like I've seen vampire people before, like wait for the sun and let it kill them, but the fact that he was really out in the middle of the water where there was nothing, there's nowhere for him to hide. Like
Right.
he made that decision as soon as he got on the boat. That was it. He was done, and he knew that he had limited amount of time before the sun came up, and then once it did, that was it. And I thought, what better way to prove to somebody that something insane that you just said is true than, for that to take place. So,
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, I did not expect that at all. I kind of totally forgot about the whole sun thing and didn't even think it was coming up. They did a good job making you focus on what he was saying and is he going to kill her and all that stuff. And then that happened and it kind of blew me away.
yeah, me too.
So, there was
But you're
something
right. You were right. The demon, I keep saying the demon, the angel did kill him, like ripped his throat out or twisted his neck, snapped
Yeah.
his neck, or both,
Yeah,
so that there was a moment where Riley came back to life. So that's why he so quickly was affected by the sunlight, whereas Pruitt didn't quite die the first time in the
right.
cave, and so he was able to continue on up until a certain point where he just like spontaneously died. And again, I don't know what caused that.
Right. He
I think they
randomly killed.
edited the scene out or something. I'm sorry.
Maybe. I don't know. He just, yeah, we don't quite know exactly what.
Yeah.
It would have been good if there was a scene between him and the angel where the angel was like, maybe by speaking or not by speaking, but somehow conveying to him that, like, okay, you've milked this long enough, like you've got to cross over now. You've got to die and come to the other side.
Maybe.
Keep
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't keep dancing on the line. You got to cross the line now.
Which is funny. That's another thing too, that Bev sort of by covering it up, she sort of becomes his ghoul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing, like in Dracula, he would give Renfield just enough blood to keep him, revitalized and strong, but not completely
Turn
turn into a
completely.
vampire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting. But guys, I got to take a quick break. Do you guys want to continue, or do you want to take a full show break? Or
Quick break it. That's okay with me.
Yeah, break's okay.
okay, cool. All right, folks. I'm going to put the graphic back up, and we will be right back in about 5 minutes.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
Got to share. I don't know what I'm doing here. Oops. Okay, folks, I'm back. And while we wait for Dantes and Michael to return, I just want to remind you to check out havenpodcasts.com. That's our website. It's got all of our shows. It's got Then Is Now podcast, The East Meets the West, the Cult Movie Lounge. Those are podcasts. And then we've got the Fright Lounge has a segment on there as well, which, by the way, I'm going to update Fright Lounge to add in more. I think it's a little bit behind, so I'm working on it. It's taken me a couple of months to update the website. We've also got advertisements on there, and there's a lot of them. So I'm still trying to wrestle with it to make sure it's not, too much. But if you could click on one of the links. Oh, nope, you didn't miss the show, Bob. We took a 5-minute break there. We got some comments here, but I just want to mention too on havenpodcasts.com, we've got a ton of news that we're curating on there. We've got horror news, sci-fi news, science news, comic book stuff, comic book news. I just want to keep saying news over and over again. Soap opera news, retro pop culture news, and UFO paranormal news on there too. So there's a lot of fun stuff to be had at our website. So check it out and let us know what you think. I'm going to read some of the comments here since I have time. Frank, I'll wait till Dantes gets back to give him your suggestion. We've also got another person named Hybrid Vapez says, "Oh yeah, so he said the same thing as Frank. You're there, Dantes. There you are. I see you." The fans want to know if you want to do an Easter song.
Oh God, I'm not the lovey-dovey type. I like to
It
party.
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. You can
I
get as
don't have
dark as
kids
you
yet
want.
either, so I don't know. I don't want to, I don't want to make any
Well, you
music.
can imagine, can't you?
I'll just imagine some little
Use
clown.
your imagination.
So one
There's already a
fan.
Halloween song. You guys, you can go listen to Sixth Dimension. That's as
Oh
far as
yeah, yeah.
my holiday.
Telling you,
Yeah,
Christmas song. You think
Halloween.
Mariah Carey really wanted to do a Christmas song? No, but
No,
now she made one every single year.
they play it. Yeah.
Cha-ching! Right? That's the way to make
Um,
money. Just take one for the team,
I'm
But
just
hey,
so
reading
to speak.
the fan comments on the Facebook page. We've got Leandra says she loves this series. I assume you mean Midnight Mass. And then we've got another person, Nina, who's apologized for being late. No problem, Nina. You can catch the
It's
first
all
half of
good.
the show on the replay. We're in the middle of we're about to start episode 6. And she also said, I love Fright Lounge. I found the show because Dantes was on Then Is Now podcast. So thank you for finding us and thank you for being a fan. We love it.
That's
Yeah.
why we keep him around
Yeah.
to help bring people in.
Oh my, which by the way,
Kidding,
Dantes,
kidding,
I did
kidding.
get your recent email. You sent me one of your new songs and I love it. It's great.
great. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Yeah.
So that's the fun part about being friends with musicians. You get all of the good stuff before everybody
Can
else.
we play a clip of one of his songs on the show?
We could. I'd have to
I mean, just not necessarily today, but
maybe next episode
at
we'll
some
figure it out
points.
so we can do that. If that's okay with you, Dantes.
Yeah, that's fine. Even though the older stuff's a little painful for me to listen to. But
You
Well, we
can
could,
tell us which ones.
yeah.
oh no,
And
I'm not saying that in like a bad way. It's just the new stuff is just more mature.
More you.
Well, yeah, it's just
he's
Well,
growing as an artist.
that's normal.
it's not all poppy. Sorry,
But
guys.
I mean, we could not necessarily play the whole song necessarily, but just play like 60 seconds of pick one of the songs and play a chunk of it. And then people that are watching this show can get a taste of his music. And then if they want to go from this show to his music, then it's just as good as people knowing who he is and coming
Right.
to the show.
Right. My only
Understand?
concern is if YouTube is going to give us a hard time about copyrights.
Oh,
But we'll work those details out in between shows, and next week
yes.
we'll try to do something.
Yes.
So let's jump into episode 6, which is called Book 6, Acts of the Apostles. Erin returns to the island where Sarah shows her the rejuvenated Mildred and how her blood samples burn in the sunlight. Dantes, you mentioned that I thought that was great. Theorizing that Father Paul is inducing medical miracles via the communion wine, and Erin's consumption of it is what killed her baby. She relays her suspicions to Sheriff Hassan, who refuses to investigate the church, fearing further alienation from the locals. Erin, Sarah, and Mildred attempt to get to the ferry to the mainland, but discover that Mayor Scarborough has sent the ferries away. That night, Sturge cuts power to the town. Now, this is where things start to get really good. Father Paul reveals that he is Monsignor Pruitt at Mass, unveiling the angel to a shocked congregation. Pruitt informs them that they all have the angel's blood and encourages them to drink poison to die and then be reborn. Several residents drink it, including Lisa's parents, Sturge, Uker, and Ali. Mildred shoots Pruitt and is attacked by the angel. The undead churchgoers resurrect and attack those who have not drunk the poison. Ed is turned while Erin, Hassan, Lisa, Sarah, Warren, and Annie escape. Erin shoots Bev, and a resurrected Bev and Sturge unleash the undead churchgoers onto the remaining townsfolk. And that's, the show is worth watching when you get to this point because it's just so good. In the next episode, it's amazing.
This honestly has been my favorite, actually, to be honest with you. Like, because I had seen this in the Netflix, queue. My partner had put it in the queue, and it's been sitting there for like 2 years. So, like, this was so worth it. I mean, do I dare say a student of Stephen King? Like, I mean, I don't want to say any more without giving this episode away. It's just so good.
Yeah.
It's also the first episode in which Bev and Father Paul go slightly separate ways in terms of how they're viewing the situation. Like he says to her, once he kind of recovers and everything, he says to her, "What? I thought we were going to keep them in here. Like you let them go, you let them out." And she was like, "Oh yeah, that's the best way to sort out the believers from the non-believers. As they say, let God sort them out." And I was like, "Oh, you nasty." Like I couldn't believe those words were coming out of her mouth, but oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, she was so far gone.
Yeah.
And
But
there
I
was
love
one
when they're going out the back door and she goes, "Well, even if you kill me, you're only going to give yourself an extra 5 minutes." And she goes, "We have 5 minutes, guys."
Yeah. That was awesome. Now, the one thing about that scene, though, that irritated me was they made a point of showing all these, because the poison they drank was like, what do you call it? Kerosene or something. And there were all these cans of it in the back room. I'm like, why didn't they then, right then and there, take it and douse the church with everybody in it because they had locked the doors?
Right.
And they could have torched the whole thing and killed all the vampires. And they didn't do that. They ran. They panicked.
I was wondering that too. Yeah. Why didn't they just do that? Yeah.
You know what I love the most about this show, to be honest, is, sometimes as a society, we turn our nose up to, different people's beliefs. And we tend to forget that, different things mean different things to different people. So by them calling the vampire an angel, that just goes to show you where this show is up here. Because Christians, we have, I can't speak for, everyone. I don't know if everyone's Christian or whatnot, but Christians typically have this thing where, God is this and he's only that, and screw what your belief is. It doesn't matter. I hate to say it like that. I can say that I'm a Christian. It's the truth. But what I love the most about this is almost the subversion.
Yes.
Of the holiness. It just everything about it, from the pastor, the Jonestown.
Yeah.
Totally. Drink the poison.
Drink the
poison and you will be reborn.
Drink the fucking poison. I would drink it. I mean, look, we're not getting younger. I mean, fuck.
We're not getting any younger.
We're not getting any younger, and
I don't think I could feed though. Maybe I could.
I could. It's either that or walk upstairs and look at your portrait, with all of the fucking age and shit all on the fucking portrait like Dorian Gray, or just go suck some fucking blood. I'd totally suck some fucking blood.
And I think for vampires too, and a lot of, like, especially in this and a lot of other vampire movies, for example, the bloodlust just overcomes them. They can't help it.
Yeah.
But I haven't. Okay, I'm not gonna jump too far. I'm not.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Good job.
Another
Thank you.
parallel this made me think of was
The
Invasion of
restraint.
the Body Snatchers.
Gonna restrict. Yes.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
One
very,
of us.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. You guys are
Mhm.
in for such a treat. Like, I have not been so excited for people to watch anything as much as what we have watched tonight. Like, this
It,
has,
it, it it's definitely one of those things where the payoff is so worth it, but you really have to slog through the long setup and the progression of it before you get to the big payoff. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so worth it. It's so
yeah.
worth it. Thank you for having me again, Rigor. I
Oh,
really
you're
love it.
welcome. Now, had you seen this before, Dantes?
No, not at all. Like I said, I had been just scrolling past it now for
Oh, right.
at least the last 3 or 4 years, and it's just hard. You guys know how hard it is
Oh,
to
there's
watch
so
new
much stuff.
material. There's just so
Yeah.
much. So,
Yeah.
I don't think it ever would have happened, Rigor, unless you guys said, "Hey, we're gonna watch this. Be ready." And I I mean, we both sat in here like glued. Albeit, like the second episode, I did kind of get up and move around because
Yeah.
it was moving a little slow. But
Hmm.
episode 4, when the you angel
Right.
rips out his fucking throat. Oh, I was sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was sold. Like
I saw, yeah, that when they showed the thing in the cave and he looked over and he saw these things that looked like, okay, maybe those could be eyes. What are those? And then the thing blinked and it was like so obvious that they were eyes. And not only that, but they were looking directly at him. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like at that moment, I'm pretty sure I said, "Oh shit," like
Yeah.
out loud.
right? I mean, and I remember seeing a preview because I looked at a preview before I started watching, and I remember they were doing the cave segment where with the eyes, and I'm like, holy shit, what is that? It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, and John, you mentioned you're Christian. Michael and I were saying at the beginning of the episode too that we're Catholic too, and when my wife and I were watching it, we were the first couple episodes, we were like, "Shit, we gotta get our asses back to church. It's been a while."
Yes,
We ended up watching Easter Mass this morning on TV, and it's like now we're gonna try to reincorporate that and get our grandson,
I
interested in.
felt the same way too. I'm like, Jesus, boy, if I step in there, it's gonna start boiling it.
Well, it depends on which Christian denomination. If it's Catholicism, yes. But I was married to a Lutheran pastor. I was raised Catholic, and then at a certain point, I just kind of stopped, dealing with the religion at all. And eventually, when I did get married, my ex-wife, my now ex-wife, was a Lutheran pastor, and her church was very accepting of like anybody
Yeah.
in any whatever background. And what's really funny is she once we were married and once I reluctantly started getting more and more involved in her church. She was like, okay, well, you're a Lutheran now, so I'm going to contact like the Catholic diocese and tell them that you're a Lutheran. And that apparently she did call them, and they were like, yeah, no, he's not. He's Catholic. They were like, he was baptized Catholic. He was confirmed as a Catholic. He's a Catholic. She's like, no, no, no. He's a Lutheran now. We need to change his records. And they were like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
That's funny. That's
They're
hilarious.
like, they're very absolute, like,
Yes, they are.
nope.
That's funny.
But
That's so funny.
one thing that they said in the show was about he kept reiterating that everybody who's ever encountered an angel face to face has been afraid. He
Yeah.
kept saying that over and over. Like, of course you're scared. Like, of course this is scary. This is the scary thing. But it's an angel, even though it doesn't match what your idea of an angel is.
Right.
And I've seen videos, I haven't watched the videos, but I've seen thumbnails of videos on YouTube that say that there were different forms of angels as described in the Bible. And apparently some of them are really freakish and scary looking.
Idea.
Mm. And they're
Not the,
warriors. They use swords and kill
yeah.
people and kill monsters and whatever.
Yep.
And in my notes here, I kept referring to the creature as as the vampire master, and but the closed caption calls him an angel. So
And
it's
that's what they call him in the show. Yeah.
yeah, and that's exactly that's the whole parallel there where we kind of talked about before. Why would you think this demonic looking thing, despite the fact that he has wings, is an angel? So I
Hmm.
think that's a
But what
He's bringing life. He's giving you
this
life.
show
yeah,
made me realize, honestly, is that, you know, everyone's savior is different based on what you're going through. So for some person out there, a figure like that may be their savior and provide all of the salvation and answers. And that's I think sort of like the cryptic moral of the story is that you have your own belief and we all have our own beliefs, but what may save you may not save the next person.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
that's really, 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 really well done on this show. Very well done. Um, Chris Carter, I believe, was the writer of the X-Files, and he
Yeah.
totally took a page out of this. It the pacing of the story moves along just enough for you to stay on the edge of your seats to say, I want to go to the next episode.
Yeah.
I think this would have done really well as a novel because I've read books that are like that. It's like I read the whole chapter and there's only like a page and a half in there that makes me go, okay, I need to know what's happening with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna keep reading until they get back to that again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the whole resurrection analogy too. And again, it kind of worked
Yeah.
because today's Easter.
Brilliant, Grigor. I gotta see, man. That was
The
like,
timing.
Yeah. It's just,
Yeah.
and I didn't plan that because, like I said, I knew nothing about this. I
yes, you
watched
did.
this.
Midnight Mass. Come
I
on.
no,
Worked out. You
Mike
did
Hill
that.
picked it, and
I
knew.
was the only one who's seen it before, so
Yeah, I knew nothing about it walking in. I didn't
Wow.
even watch the previews. I was just like, I went in cold.
sometimes it's the best way.
Brilliant,
Oh,
brilliant,
absolutely.
brilliant.
But I really think that the more I think about it now that I've seen it twice, I think this takes place in a universe where there are no vampire legends or movies or TV shows because nobody once they realized what was happening, it wasn't like anybody said, "Okay, let's get some wooden stakes. We got to stake him through the heart. Okay, we got to put a cross up, bring him back, get some holy water. Everybody get some holy water." Like nobody had any of that in their heads already. There wasn't like they've seen Dracula or anything,
Yeah.
And clearly the crosses didn't work because they wouldn't have been able to go into the church, first of all.
Right,
Well,
right,
holy ground,
exactly.
Highlander.
Holy
Um,
ground, yeah. No
but
shade.
but
That was
Father Paul does cut the palm of his hand with a little necklace crucifix,
Crucifix.
so he
Yeah,
can drink his own blood.
yeah,
That
which
was
is
kind of bizarre
freakish.
to me. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was bizarre to you guys. Like that was
yeah.
I didn't really understand that scene. There was a
Mm.
standout though. That's in my notes over here.
He was trying to not kill anyone else and drink their blood, so he was drinking his own blood. He
Mm.
could have just grabbed a knife, but I guess he was so desperate that he used the necklace to do it.
I like the way they dealt with the bloodlust in the scene a couple episodes ago when they turned Riley and he like woke up and then he tried to go out and the guy was like, don't do that. And it was sunlight was burning him and they brought him back in. And then at a certain point, Bev came in and the Father Paul got behind Riley and he said, "It's okay, I got him. You stand a little closer." And they were trying to show Riley that he had this hunger for
Yeah,
blood, and they let Bev get closer and closer, and all of a sudden his eyes changed and he could see the blood moving through her neck and everything, and it was like he suddenly had this, he just tried to jump up out of the chair and attack her, and the other guy had to hold him back.
yeah, yeah. And
So
that's
that
another
was
thing
really
too.
well done.
When some of the people turned, they could sort of see like the fabric of the universe. I thought
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was really cool.
that was
Yeah.
different. That was definitely different. I
Mm.
Dracula Untold, there was a portion of that I remember where after he had went into the cave and he had gotten bitten, he had come out and as he was dying, like his eyes had like developed so intensely that he could see like way into the galaxy, like Milky Ways and all of that stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool, honestly.
I haven't
Mhm.
seen that yet. I have to.
And who was it that was describing it to him? Was it Father Paul describing it to Riley or something? And they said like it vibrates, like the light
Father Paul.
vibrates, and
Yeah.
it was Father Paul explaining it. Yeah, how it's like all so different, and
And they
yeah.
did the heartbeats very subtly too. It
Mhm.
was almost imperceptible until I saw the closed caption that said heartbeat is heard. And I was like, oh, and I did crank the volume up so I could hear it. But yeah, and in this episode, it was really, shocking when Ali grabs the cup and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And he drinks it and
Yeah.
croaks, spits up blood. I love how they have this violent death, just like, spitting up
And
blood.
I felt so bad for his father at that moment because he was like, "No, no, no,
Yeah, yeah.
don't do it, don't do it." It's like,
And
I
I
just
love.
okay. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No,
No,
you.
go.
All right, fine.
Uh,
I love the fact that Bev goes full on zealous nutsy cuckoo in this. She's
yeah,
just gone.
she finally snaps.
Yeah,
I
She's like, "I
mean,
thought we said we were only going to take the select few." Yeah.
yeah,
I thought she would have lost her marbles a lot sooner, honestly.
Yeah, true. Well, she kind of did, but it just was allowed to run free at the end, I think.
yeah.
Now,
So,
now
go
that
ahead.
we're talking about this on the second round through, for me watching it, having watched it a second time,
Yeah,
I'm now for sure because the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, the big giant wooden crate, who's in there? Is the angel in there, or is Father Pruitt in there, or the priest? Stop burping. But the now that we've talked it through and I realized that Pruitt was not hurt by sunlight until after he died, which was later on, I realized, okay, the angel was inside that crate and that's how he got him to the island because they showed this giant crate in the
yeah,
beginning.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the first time I watched it, I was like, wait, huh? But now we've talked the whole sunlight thing through, so it makes sense now.
That kind of reminded me of Blackula when they unloaded the coffin off of
Hmm.
the onto the truck, and Blackula was in there.
I know I kept expecting there to be like a little bit of dirt from the cave.
Yeah, yeah. That was a couple of the rules of vampires that they ignored was the dirt, and like I said, the crucifix didn't affect them.
The holy water. They didn't say anything about holy water. Sunlight was the only thing. And then you could argue that though, like, is sunlight necessarily goodness? Like sunlight hurts them, but sunlight is a natural phenomenon. So that's not necessarily proof that they're evil. It's just proof that they can't live in the daylight. So, you know what I mean? Like holy water is holy water. It's like, okay, it's been blessed and that burns you. So clearly you're evil because this thing that's holy is hurting you. But, with they did away with a lot of those vulnerabilities, but they stuck with the sunlight. And it's like, okay, that could be anything, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
little bit extreme to burn up into ash, but it's like, well, they can't handle sunlight, like, period. That's just the kind of organism that they are. They don't, it doesn't mean that they're evil because sunlight is not necessarily, we use the pictures of the sun and sunlight to indicate God a lot, the light of God's, wisdom or purity or whatever,
right,
grace,
right.
but it's not necessarily, light and dark is like a metaphor that we use, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're evil if you can't handle the light.
Right, right, exactly.
I mean, it does, but the interpretation could have been
Yeah.
otherwise. Yeah.
And I love just so how, once these people were coming back and they were being full on vampires at this point, they were attacking the people that hadn't killed themselves. And it was just a free for all, utter chaos going on as the good guys. It was kind of funny. Like the first time through, I wasn't sure who was who and who was turned and stuff. And the
Yeah.
second time through, when you watch the scene, you're like, okay, you could see who went down and who didn't, and then you got your circle of good guys that are going to be the ones that are left to
Yep.
try and fight their way through. I really like that. So, all right, before we get on to episode 7, the final episode, I just want to mention we have a fan named Martin who wrote Very Creepy Show. I watched episode 4. So, Martin, we're kind of spoiling things for you here. I hope you're not,
Yeah.
it's not ruined for you, but thanks for tuning in to the Fright Lounge. All
Some
right.
people don't mind spoilers. Like some
Yeah.
people are fine, but they still want to go back and watch
Yeah.
it, how it unfolds in the actual thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you
I'm
tell them.
wicked. Like if when I see a trailer, like even like mentioned earlier, I just saw Ghostbusters, the new one, and
Oh, did you?
Frozen Empire, very good. I thought it was enjoyable. When I first saw the trailer and I realized what it was, I just closed my eyes to it. I didn't
Yeah.
watch any of it.
I remember you used to do that, and even in the theater when we went to see movies.
Yeah.
If you as soon as you realized that a trailer was for a movie that you were planning to see, you would just close your eyes and look down,
Yeah.
and like wait. I mean, you could still hear it, but it wasn't the same.
Right.
I was like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "I don't want to know anything."
You know where that comes from? When Back to the Future 2 came out, and they had made part 2 and part 3 back to back.
Hmm.
At the very end of part 2, there was a trailer for part 3. And there was one shot, and I go, oh, that's the end shot of the film. And sure enough,
Mm.
I was absolutely right. And from that time on, I'm like, I am not watching trailers, or at least all the way through, because I want to be surprised. They
It killed the
ruined so
suspense
much.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like there was no like, are they going to be okay? Because you saw them at the end. Oh, they're fine.
right.
Yeah.
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 So, all right. So, episode 7, the final episode of Midnight Mass from 2021. It's called Book 7, Revelation. The now turned Mildred reunites with Pruitt. Now, let's remember Mildred was the doctor's mother, Sarah. Sarah, the doctor, was her mother. It turns out the two were lovers years ago, and Sarah is their daughter. Pruitt brought the angel to the island to rejuvenate Mildred so they could have a second chance to be together. Erin and her allies set fire to the boats to prevent the turned churchgoers from leaving. Bev leads the turned on. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Bev leads the turned on a vampirish rage, killing anyone they find. Horrified by the violence, Pruitt denounces Bev, and she denounces him as a false prophet. Bev orders her followers to burn down everything except the church and recreation center, which she intends to use as a shelter from sunlight. Erin and her allies attempt to burn down the church and rec center, but Sturgis shoots Sarah. Bev mortally wounds Hassan, and the angel attacks Erin. Erin slashes its wings as she dies to prevent it from escaping. Ali burns down the rec center, leaving no shelter for the turned. The undead churchgoers realize with the entire island burning, there will be no surviving the sunrise. Ali and Hassan pray together on the beach one final time. As dawn approaches, the remaining townspeople gather to be immolated by the sun while singing "Nearer, My God, to Thee." Lisa and Warren row offshore to avoid the carnage and are the island's only survivors. They watch the angel attempt to fly away before sunrise, but notice its movement is slow and erratic. They wonder if the angel will reach shelter on the mainland before the sun rises. As the sun rises, Bev, Pruitt, Mildred, and the rest of the island's inhabitants die. As Lisa and Warren watch the island from the boat, Lisa mentions that she can't feel her legs anymore.
Mm.
My favorite part of this was, and it was because something I thought of, was when I've already forgotten what her name is. Oh, when Erin's attacked by the vampire master, she's slicing through his wings with a knife. And I was like, yes, that's the smartest thing you could do, you know?
Yeah.
And then he's so involved with enjoying drinking her blood that he's not even paying attention
Yeah.
to like and I guess there's not too many nerve endings in between the things, maybe. I don't know. But she was like cutting him, and then he would kind of notice that she was cutting him, and she would just pull his head back, like, no, 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 you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna keep cutting you. And then he tried to fly off, and he really couldn't. He was having a hard time staying up and continuing.
And was it this episode or was it the last one? Because I don't remember mentioning it, but he was killing someone and the girl Lisa was shooting him in the head with the rifle and he didn't even notice. He was totally unfazed.
Yeah. And then they splashed gasoline all over him and
Yeah.
ran a little trail outside the house that set it on fire. That's
Right.
what I didn't like though, because that they covered him in gasoline and then they lit the thing and the fire went in and you heard him screaming and then he comes out and he was like well, I guess they can heal. All right, they can heal up. But I always want to see things be damaged. Like if you took damage, I want to see that you got damaged. Even
Yeah.
if you're able to heal, I want to see it first and then see you regenerate. I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, it never really got hurt. I hate
Yeah.
that shit.
Well, like
Um,
when Father Paul was testing it out, he had the burn on his hand that was healing.
yeah,
And then he did it again, of course, like I
yeah.
said, for
But
our
like the
benefit.
first one wasn't quite all the way healed yet. But maybe
Yeah.
the angel was so advanced that it just never, the scar tissue just disappeared. As soon as he got away from the fire, maybe it just regrew.
One of our fans put a comment. His name's Alan, and I think it's safe to say we all agree with you, Alan. He goes, "I thought the angel was scary as fuck, dude."
It was. It was so
Absolutely.
fucking scary.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't even know if it was capable of speaking or not because it never did, but just the few scenes it was in, the way it looked at people and stuff, and I
And
love when he got to the front of the church and opened his wings and everybody was like,
yeah,
"Damn."
but
You
he
know?
comes in a priest's robe.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Well, and then finally I put it together because in the early episode when the rainstorm is happening, Riley says, I thought I saw Pruitt walking on the beach with the hat and the coat. And then later on, the angel comes in to see the priest at the thing with the hat and the long trench coat on.
Oh, I
So
totally
I
missed
thought
that. Okay,
maybe that's who he saw.
that must be, yeah, because he
But
thought
why
it
would
was
the
the
angel walk
Monsignor.
around with a what?
He thought it was the old version, the Monsignor.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know, but I don't. And so I thought, yeah. But I don't know why he would wear a hat and a coat. I mean, maybe he was just trying to hide himself. Maybe the priest told him to do that.
Probably.
So
Yeah.
nobody knows, if you're gonna come around, you better cover yourself up a little bit.
So, there was a couple of things that I thought about that kind of really stuck out to me. One is I thought, when they realized, oh shit, they burned all the buildings and they burned the boats. The first thing I thought of was right out of 30 Days of Night was bury yourselves in the ground. That's the only
Yeah.
shade that's left.
Yeah.
And only Bev kind of tries to do it, but by the time she thought of it, it was too late. It's like,
Too late.
that should have been the first thing you thought of.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really, but again, if they are living in a world where that mythology doesn't really exist, or they haven't seen those types of movies or whatever, then maybe, which it seems to be to me, that might be the reality,
Yeah.
then they might not think of that right away. But yeah, you're right. It would be like, try to find, I think if the sun I don't know. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they
I
didn't really work very hard to find an alternative shade source.
no.
Right.
I
I
mean, not that there was much, but
I was sort of let down with Aaron's demise. I didn't like the whole sacrificial lamb smiling thing. Like I did not like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I know the character felt pleased that it was saving so many lives, but it just was a little, can I say cheesy?
no, you
Okay,
can't say
cheesy.
that.
It was a little cheesy.
Yeah.
She didn't
I
really,
didn't I didn't like that either.
besides stabbing the hell out of, the angel's wings, like she literally just let him have dinner.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, no
And I
fight.
want to know, how did she pass the knife from her left hand to her right hand?
That's what I'm talking about.
With him on top of her. How'd that happen?
Movie magic.
She didn't go under. She didn't go across. Did she go over? Maybe she reached her hands up and over her head or something.
I don't know.
But like, how did she achieve that on both sides?
I just assumed maybe she just sucked in her stomach and created, a little concave area and just slipped it through.
Thank God I don't have a baby anymore, because I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
man.
awful.
But to your point, Dantes, I think though, at that level, she knew she was done. So there was no recourse but to do as much damage as she could possibly do before she went out.
I mean, it didn't really strike me as someone who was like fighting though. Like it was sort of like, take me, smile.
Yeah. I mean, you could read a lot into it too, because there have been other vampire movies where the victim it's like ecstasy for them to be.
Well, I know, but this was not ecstasy. I did
No.
not see fucking Gary what
Oldman.
Oldman.
I did not see Gary Oldman. I was not getting sexy vibes there. I just wasn't. I was getting scared as fuck and gross.
I found it a little gross too. I mean, it was kind of cool in a way that they went back a little bit to the conversation she had with Riley about what
Yeah.
happens when you die. Like she was replaying some of that in her head. I thought that was kind of cool. But I see what you mean. I wasn't fully satisfied with her death
I
either.
just felt like after going through hell, that not only just her, but even Riley, like everybody, I just thought that, after going through all of this and learning everything that they had learned, that they just would have been a little more angrier,
Losing her baby and watching Riley die. Yeah, you'd think she would have been like running around with that fucking hatchet chopping.
I mean, that's what I was expecting. I thought she would have been out there, Walking Dead style with the fucking hatchet. We're about to cut this motherfucker's head off. If I can't get a wing, I'm getting a head. Something.
A little barbecue sauce on those wings.
Yeah, like somehow get away from him and like really do damage to his wings, like chop
Yeah.
part of his arm off, or chop.
And it was like they tried to make it intimate without having.
And why didn't he heal up right away?
Ooh, that's a good point.
If he was feeding on her and he was in pretty good health at that moment, if he could heal that fast from getting burned by the fire, although they never showed exactly how fast he healed, but he healed to the point where you couldn't tell. How come he didn't heal up the holes in his wings right away?
Good question.
It's called a plot device.
It's called suspend your disbelief. Suspend your disbelief.
See, now you just punched another hole in it for me.
Sorry.
Like, I mean, I'm serious. Like, I love, like, it's all.
There might be a reason for it. Maybe they couldn't show us. There was a scene that got deleted or something, and then there might
So
be.
are we all saying that the ending fell flat? Is that what we're coming to a consensus on?
I'm not
I
saying that, but there
Okay.
are holes in it.
Okay.
There are a couple of little holes in it, but again, I think the the ultimate payoff from episode 5 to episode 6 is overall quite worth it. I think
Yeah.
there's a couple of points where you go, wait a minute, like didn't I sit through a lot of development and stuff, and I got the sense that maybe by the ending that maybe they had forgotten about a couple of little tiny details, but at that point it was pretty much chaos. So
Yeah.
I guess I was okay with it.
Yeah. And I love that chaos as the good guys are running through the town, and you're seeing people like the lady running out screaming, and they're like, "Shh, don't scream, they'll find." And then they're like,
Shut
"Fuck,
up.
let's get
Yeah,
out of here."
Wait.
we were gonna save you, but forget it. We can't now.
All
And
right, so I'm gonna punch a huge hole into the vampire's plan. It still didn't ruin the show for me, but I felt that their plan, like what's her name, Bev and Sturgis, they go around and burn every building except for the church and the rec center. It's like, well, first of all, why are you doing that? You're
yeah,
gonna need shelter when the sun comes.
the
And then
church.
the good guys burned the boats. I think they assumed they were going to be able to get on the boats and maybe get up below deck or something. But if
Oh,
the vampire plan was to go to the mainland and then spread the infection and start just making vampires everywhere, there's a
uh-huh.
huge flaw in that, because if you turn everybody in the world into a vampire, you have no more food supply.
Yeah.
So it would end up having to be something like that movie Daybreakers with Ethan Hawke, where the vampires did take over, but they treated the humans like cattle, because they knew, they were like, oh shit, we may kill all our food supply,
Oh, wow. Or and then they could always drink animal blood, I suppose, but most movies make the assumption that human blood is better than animal blood for vampires.
Well, yeah, even on Forever Night, he would drink animal blood, but he was always weak because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm.
I That was just the one thing that stuck in my craw. I'm like, that's a bad plan. You got to leave at least some alive so you can continue to live yourself.
I
yeah.
guess, I mean, yeah, true, true, true. I think the idea too is that I felt like it took so long, even on this island with such a limited population, it took some time for it to like happen. I mean, I don't know, maybe as it spread, it wasn't going to spread super fast, but I guess depends on how it went about. And like, how long do you have to be a vampire before you get to the point of that angel? You know what I mean? Like to me,
Yeah,
that angel, like I said before, is almost like a Nosferatu vampire. I get the sense that that fucker's been around for a
right.
long time, you know?
Yeah,
And other people were just like people who wanted to drink blood. You never even saw fangs. We
right.
never even saw teeth on the people. They were just drinking blood, you know?
That's true. That's true.
But I loved watching Beverly die. That was so satisfying. She's just like screaming into the dawn and just falling apart, and like watching her mouth like fall off of the rest of her face. I was like, yeah, we don't have to listen to you anymore. We don't have to listen to you speak ever again.
That's so funny. One thing I did like too, towards the end, was when Father Paul finally has a change, and he's like, "Oh, this is not good. I Maybe we're not doing the right thing here." And he tries, but it's too late. Too little, too late.
I'm gonna use Dantes' word cheesy for that. I thought that was like tacked on almost, like for him to finally realize it. Really, dude, it never occurred to you all this time that this might have been a bad thing? Now you realize it's bad? Now? It's a little after the fact, dude. And suddenly he's like, "Oh, we can't keep doing this. We have to stop." It's like, what, you put this all in motion, and you had no foresight to see what I mean. What a dumbass! Especially for somebody who was as old as he was before he got changed. Because
Exactly.
if he was like
Agreed.
almost 100 years old, then he was around during the World Wars and stuff like that. Like he knows how, you know, whatever, like if you go through suffering, you don't want to repeat it, or you know how the patterns of life go, and for him to not anticipate that it was going to get that bad is it's a little hard to swallow.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I really didn't like the scene where Paul, Father Paul, is that his name? Yeah.
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 When he was explaining to Mildred why
World War II.
he did this, and I'm like, you're a fucking asshole. You've been alive for almost 200 years, and you
Yeah.
still don't know, like you still haven't learned your lesson from the last outing, apparently.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
his main goal was to come back and bring the love of his life. Like he figured if he could relive his young years, he wanted to, relive them with her, and that was his main goal the whole time. But and so was he using the angel for that purpose? Like, okay, quid pro quo, like I need the ability to bring this woman back to her youth so we can be together again. So I'll play along with this like infecting everybody thing. Or did he want the congregation to all start healing a little bit so that they wouldn't care when he revealed his identity and made her young again too? Like, I
Hmm.
don't know. It
Yeah.
didn't seem to me like he was paying particular attention to her until the end. And then all of a sudden he was like, "Oh, this was my whole reason for doing it. I wanted to be with you again." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Huh? It was like the end of the Matrix when she goes, "I love you, Neo." It's like, "Oh, come on."
Come on.
Like,
Yeah.
really?
It's like, oh,
Really?
you did this for me?
It
You're
just
the main
all this
character. I'm
time.
the main character. What the heck?
Yeah. I mean, but I feel like if Father Paul had really been sort of like longing for her in some ways in different scenes across the episodes, I might have thought, oh, he's, you know, it wouldn't have seemed so out of the blue at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's probably they could have gone in and tightened that up a bit and maybe added in a little more nuggets to him, to his ambivalence about the whole thing. He's, yeah, all right. Like you said, he's like in his mind, his goal was to go to her. So we should have seen more of him interacting with her on that level. And then, you know, kind of playing the vampire to suit his own needs, not realizing it was going to affect everybody, and I think that's kind of where the change in his heart comes from. Is he was like, oh, I maybe because he was so probably so focused on what he was doing, what his goal was, he
Yeah.
didn't consider what the ramifications overall would be to
Yeah.
everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of single-minded about it.
Very
Yeah.
single-minded. But
Yeah.
and that and that's the unusual factor about the pastor, because usually a pastor or a father, their job is to lead the congregation and not make sure that any sheep are left behind. But boy, did he make sure that
Mm.
Yeah. And Bev wasn't going to let that one guy come with them when they were supposed to go hide in the rec center. She's like, I haven't seen you in church for 20 years. You're out of here.
Yeah, she was really militant.
Yeah. The militant wing of the Salvation Army.
goodness.
I was going to say
Um,
one more thing. Oh, the second time through, I really saw Father Paul as Father Paul, Father John, Jim, Frank, Bill.
One of those names, they all start with one of those,
I think
usually.
it's Paul. I think it's Paul. Anyway, Father Paul was uh more of a victim. I feel like this time, or you know how they say in certain werewolf stories that it's like simultaneously like um it's like some people revel in the fact that they have the power and some people are tortured by it and
right.
they suffer. That's how I felt the second time through, was that he was glad that he got his life back. He was glad that he could help others with the blood and stuff, but he was horrified of what became of him, especially after he died and came back. And the whole thing, like after he killed Joe in the rectory, and then when the Bev found them, he was all the way over in the corner, like just against the wall, just staring into space, like just like shocked and depressed about what he just did.
Yeah.
So I think he was struggling the whole time, trying to hold it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he may not even have known what the next step would be. He got all of a sudden he's got this youth again. He's got maybe immortality, and he may not have even known what it would mean to then actually fully turn into a vampire. And then he was doing that to everybody
Right.
because he had already been giving them the blood to begin with, the whole
Right.
town, most of
Yeah.
the time. So they maybe should have spelled that out a little more clearly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. But it's funny. We have a fan watching. Keisha says, "Hey Dantes, I agree with you. In my kill, Father Paul was a selfish idiot."
Yeah. Well, love makes you stupid.
That's
Yes, it
true.
does.
It's true. Although
So.
it was, I did like one funny scene where Sturgis shoots. This wasn't funny, but Sturgis shoots Aaron, and Father Paul gets enraged, and it was just funny to watch a priest try to beat the crap out of a guy, and he's strangling the shit out of him.
Yeah, that was something. I'm like, damn, she got.
Sarah, he shot Sarah.
Sarah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, when he realized it too. And then he's like telling her that she's his daughter while she's dying. And I love that he
Yes.
tries to like give her blood to bring her back and she spits it out.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck off. Like, I don't want, she didn't say fuck off, but I mean, the intention was fuck off. I'm not, if I'm going to die, let me die. Like, I'm
Right.
not turning into some of that crazy shit that's going
Yeah,
on out there. I don't want any part of that.
But no, some of them again, they didn't know what exactly was going to happen. They were just told resurrection. So some of them started to develop guilty consciousness. Like I think it was the altar boy. He's like, "Shit, I think I killed my mother." And there was one other dude that was like, "Oh my god, I killed these people." So they were starting to become horrified at their own actions as
Mm.
things were going on. So I thought that was interesting. That was something that could have been explored further, but I think the show was long enough as it was. It didn't need to go any longer.
Well, and the other thing is, I think half of them had drunk the poison and died and came back, and half of them were being fed off of from the other vampires and may or may not have been fully drained or may not have been brought back by being able to drink the other's blood. So I feel like there was a whole mixture of different people running around. So I think some of them were like completely overtaken by the bloodlust, and other ones were like sort of aware of what was happening more
Right, right.
somehow.
There was one character, and I'm trying to think. I think it was the sheriff. I should have written it down, but he's basically talking to. I think he's talking to the priest. I didn't write it down clearly, but he basically says he uses a Bible quote, and he says he makes God makes the sun rise on the good and the evil, and I thought that was kind of cool because maybe he said it to Bev. I'm not sure, but it was like he knew the sun was going to kill them, and I thought that was just sort of a cool
Uh,
little line there.
I didn't catch that.
I thought he was just trying to say like just because you think I'm a pagan doesn't mean that God doesn't smile on me. Like,
I,
oh,
I think it
I'm
meant
not
both.
him and both. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'm not Catholic, but doesn't mean I'm not,
Yeah, yeah.
given God's grace or whatever he meant to say.
My original notes, if I could speak clearly, the first time I watched it through, I was like, why didn't they just go hide in the woods? And then when I watched it again, you realize the entire island's on fire. There
Yeah,
was
there are no
What's
woods. Yeah.
happening? Yeah.
And it's weird because I almost feel like Pruitt could have. Now, what timetable do you think this took place over? Was it just like a month or was it longer? What do you guys think?
I think it was less. It was
Less than a month? Okay.
just what the Palm Sunday was like episode 2 or 3. So it was pretty close to Easter. I would say it was a
Okay.
matter of a week and a half tops. I mean,
Okay. Because I kept getting the sense, oh, maybe because he was having mass daily. Okay. I kept getting the sense that whenever there was a big sermon, that it meant another week had gone by.
That's what I thought. So were
But
we wrong?
I don't know. I'm not
I think
sure.
I think it was daily because I mean, well, Palm Sunday is a week before Easter, so
Right.
he'd probably been there a week or two prior, so it could
Oh,
be 3 weeks. So yeah,
okay. Yeah. Um, I was gonna say something else. What was it? Shit.
Excuse me.
I don't just timetable to take us right. I don't know. It's gone.
maybe it'll come back.
Whatever it was. Oh, we could still talk about the show, but before we forget, I want to share a couple other pictures from that Frankenstein illustrated volume that I was talking about before. So Roger, you mentioned let's try this in a bigger window or a different window.
I see it. It's full screen.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Um See this how this scene is snow
Yeah,
and you were saying he doesn't do outlines.
Right.
He just shades where there's shadow and leaves the rest. I think this is a great example of that.
Yes.
That it's the snow is covering anything like down here. You look at the roofs, and there's no line that shows you where the roof is, but you can infer the line because of where the shadows aren't.
Right.
And I think that happens in this picture quite a bit. And I got two other real quick ones that I wanted to share.
For those who
And
tuned in late, Michael's showing us a book called Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, illustrated by Bernie Wrightson,
Bernie Wrightson.
famous comic book artist.
Yeah. Yeah, at the very beginning of the episode, I talked about this, and I showed some pictures, and then I decided I wanted to show a couple more, and I didn't want to forget. So there's this one with the snow, which I think is really good, and you can even tell that it's a recent grave that she's standing in front of because the ground is disturbed.
Can you
Um,
scroll it down? Because I can't really, I don't see that.
oh, wait, hang on. Let me redo this here. I think I got myself all mixed up.
Oops.
Ah, shit. I'm trying to get out of this. I'm sorry. Give me one quick second. I'm being a doofus. Okay. Um, okay. So can you see that?
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Where she's standing in front of the grave. Um, so yeah, there's that. And you can almost even see, I keep talking about the attention to detail. You can see like the little shadow inside this crack that's over on the right side. There's a crack in the cement or whatever
Yeah.
over here, the stone, and then there's the little shadow from the sun or whatever that's inside the crack. I mean, that's insane. And then you can almost see that the shawl she's wearing is kind of like a mesh. There's a
Yes.
little cross hatching in there.
Yeah.
The eye for detail this guy has is just insane. I can only imagine he drew these much larger and then had them reduced.
Probably.
Um,
Yeah.
there again, you can see the trees in the background with the straight lines. Here's the creature drinking out of the stream. And again, you can see the texture on the jacket, the coat, the grass, the stones, and then the water itself with all the shadows in it. Um, just very, very, very detailed. And you can very easily see, even though this is all just pen and ink, okay, that texture is wood, that texture is rock, that texture is water, that texture is
Right.
fabric. Um, okay, and then just one more quick one. Seeing it's in the rain.
Oh yeah.
And as you go down, you can kind of see the way the rain is creating the lines especially on the horse's mane that goes straight
Yeah.
down, and
Yeah.
then that delineates like where his body is, and then all these other little shadows and things. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
almost surprised to not see a little drop of water coming off the person's nose
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because every other tiny thing is like all the detail, like all these little leaves, ivy or whatever around the trunk of this tree, and just
Yeah.
he's just phenomenal.
I
Bernie
forgot to
Wrightson
mention
is.
earlier, Bernie Wrightson co-created Swamp Thing for DC Comics.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah, I've seen his drawings of Swamp Thing. Now that you mention it, I've seen them, yeah, before.
yeah.
He's an amazing artist.
All
He
right. So
was an
let's get
amazing.
back and wrap up this episode. We've got Lisa and the boy managed to survive because they had gotten into a canoe and rowed away from the island. They watch it burn from a distance. And she, of course, starts to not feel her legs again, which to me I thought was a great little touch because it indicated that the master vampire or the angel had been killed. And she,
Oh,
unless it
oh
was Father
yeah,
Paul's death, could be that too, because maybe it was,
that
I think
too.
it's his
Yeah.
blood. But either way, whoever the head vampire was is now dead, and it's confirmed because she gets her paralysis back.
Oh, so she had been drinking a little bit of the. She said he at the beginning of the series. The Father Paul said to her, Lisa, that he heard that she's the only one who goes to daily mass.
Yeah,
And so she was drinking a little bit of the blood like every day, and that was maintaining her. But the fact that she so quickly lost feeling in her legs, you're right, I think means that it was just completely done. Like yeah,
yeah,
they're all dead.
Yeah.
Ah, so that might have been the confirmation they needed that, oh, but then why wouldn't they? Maybe they deliberately didn't show it because they wanted to do it in a less direct way.
What show the
They,
death of
they
the
didn't show they didn't show the angel dying.
right, right, yeah.
They just had her say, "Oh, I can't feel my legs,"
Yeah.
and for that to be a good thing, you know?
Right. Yeah, she was like happy.
Yeah. So, oh, thank Christ, things went back to normal.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, all right. Just Dantes was breaking away for 10 minutes. So
I
um
can't break
why don't you,
away.
Michael, why don't you give us your final thoughts on this since it was your pick anyways?
My final thoughts is I'm actually really glad that you guys enjoyed it because I got a little worried when I was rewatching it and I got to like episode 4 and I was like, God damn, this is slow. Um, Excuse me, I'm sorry I keep burping. But I was like, "Ugh, it's just so slow. They're gonna hate it and they're gonna stop watching it halfway through." And but then I watched it all the way through. I still had a couple of points that I was confused on, which are now cleared up pretty much, mostly from our discussion, which is good. But yeah, I'm glad it ended up being getting a good reception in general, and um it was good food for discussion, which is exactly what I was expecting it to be. So
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I liked it, like you said. And it was funny. I think you texted me a week or two ago or last week or something where it was like you were like, give it some time. Don't binge it all the way through.
yeah,
You gotta
yeah,
watch
yeah,
them individually.
yeah. Although there was one day where I watched 3 episodes in a row, and I actually, after I had texted you that, I thought, oh, that was not so bad because it seemed to go a little faster when I watched them all in a row.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
like we kind of said at the top of the show, once you know everything, it's really interesting to watch it from the beginning.
second time through, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, the second time through because you pick up on details that you may have missed the first time because the first time it's confusing. You're like, what the hell's going on here?
yeah. Wait a minute, what the? Yeah. Then you realize later, oh, that's why he was doing that. Oh, that
Yeah.
you know.
And and I
But there's
I
still
liked
some
it.
confusing bits, though.
I liked it a lot. I like we've said several times now that it's really slow the first couple episodes. It finally picks up steam about halfway through the third episode. That's where I was sold. And again, we kind of said this probably could have been condensed into about 4 or 5 episodes and
Yeah,
didn't really need to be 7 episodes long, but that was the writer's plan, so we went with it. I mean, overall, it was well shot. It was well acted across the board. I think
very
everybody was
well.
good in it.
Yeah,
And it was scary, especially the last few
it
episodes was
was.
like terrifying.
Yeah.
So
There's at least one, even in the beginning episodes where the early episodes where it's kind of progressing slowly. There's at least one nugget in each episode that makes you go, well, maybe I'll watch the next one.
yeah,
Like even in the beginning when I didn't know what was going to be about. I think I watched the first two and I said to my roommate, do we want to keep watching this or not? And he was like, yeah, I'm kind of curious now. I'm like, all right. So but then the good stuff gets to be more and more and more. Once you get to like, 4 and 5 and 6, it's like, oh, okay. Oh boy. Oh, whoa.
it's gooder.
It's gooder. The gooderness increases substantially.
Excuse me. So while we wait for Dantes to return, so we can wrap things up completely, one of our viewers, Frank, our regular viewer, love it, Frank. Thanks for watching. He was referring to the Bernie Wrightson artwork that you were showing from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and he said, "Crazy the range of value with just black ink," and
Seriously.
I couldn't have said it better.
And I'm sure he was using all kinds of different, pens and quills and ways of putting it in there, but and must have done it on like I said, probably a larger scale. And then they printed it so that it looks really, really, really fine, but still is really fine. But I mean, even some of the early, if you weren't, I don't know, Frank, if you were here at the beginning of the episode, but I showed some of the um, pictures from inside the Frankenstein's laboratory and the way the glass is rendered and things reflected in the glass and the liquid inside the rope that's holding the thing. It was just like this guy's it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I
You
used to
know,
always say that about art, that like it's not just what you can do with your hand, it's how you see things in your head.
mm,
And I think the way he saw it so clearly in his head, and all he had to do was like fill in the blanks, sort of.
yeah. It's funny 'cause sometimes if we're out at a restaurant and I just have my pen and there's a placemat, a paper one, I'll flip it over and I'll start to try and do that kind of pen and ink, just because I love it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Bernie Wrightson. I also love Darwin Cook, who did
Mhm.
Justice League New Frontier. He sort of has this 1950s style of artwork that I absolutely love. And my third one would be Neil Adams, who used to do Batman quite a bit in the 70s, and he's
Oh,
just got
right.
a lot of great artwork that's sort of similar. He's got a lot of pen and ink lines, but with color to it's sort of similar to Wrightson's work, I think.
Art Adams.
Yeah, Art Adams is good.
Did, they,
Oh,
did,
Frank
did you?
said I was here. I'm getting that book. Nice.
Oh, he was here. Okay. Yeah, it's amazing. It's that book is just phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah,
And it's like it's getting a little old and ratty now, and it's making me want to cry because I just
yeah,
want to preserve it.
I know.
Yeah.
Mine's on my shelf. So Dantes, we kind of wrap things up. So what are your final thoughts on Midnight Mass?
Midnight Mass is a mm, God, I don't want to use a numerical system, but I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10, just because there's a couple of slow moving sections, but definitely worth the watch, guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, folks. Well, thanks for joining us for this month's episode of Fright Lounge. Dantes, can you tell the viewers where to find you and your music online?
Sure, you guys can Google the Prince region of EDM. That's me, or you guys can search for Dantes Alexander.
Excellent, excellent. And like I said before, don't forget to check out our revamped website, havenpodcasts.com. We've got all kinds of news items, and we do have ads on there as well as our shows and our blogs. I've got 3 blogs on there, I think 3 or 4, something like that. Um, and also, folks, if you could click on the ads, that would help us out, help us fund these shows. And we would love it too if you could go to wherever you listen to podcasts and give us good reviews, especially on if you go on YouTube and maybe hit a like on there, that would be great. Do we have another? Are you sharing another picture, Mike?
I no, I just yeah, sorry. I just was putting up some Midnight Mass uh promotional posters. Be
Oh,
not
no.
afraid. They're not very detailed, but I just grabbed them on online.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're interested in it, check it out. It's on Netflix. Yeah, it came out in what, 2021,
Yes.
but it's still there and it's still awesome.
Pretty
So
good.
yeah.
Nice. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next month for another fun-filled episode of Fright Lounge.
Woo!